For good ideas and true innovation, you need human interaction, conflict, argument, and debate. A very warm good morning to one and all present here. Ananya, the Unparalleled, the Literary and Debating Society of J.C. Bose University of Science and Technology, YMCA, welcomes you all to VANTAGE, a conventional debate competition. Ananya, as a society, has always valued the power of words and has aimed at providing opportunities for learning and freely expressing. VANTAGE is one such virtual platform where we give inquisitive young minds the freedom to showcase the power of arguments through their debating skills. We are extremely thrilled by the overwhelming response for the competition, and we hope you all enjoy and learn from this event. Our judges for this fine morning are Ms. Ashima Anand and Ms. Tanisha Tyagi. Both of them are exceptional debaters and have always been a constant source of inspiration. Ashima ma'am is an excellent orator and has won several debates, turncoats, and jam competitions in various Tier 1 colleges. Her pen name is well known in the entire Delhi NCR debating circuit. We also have with us Tanisha ma'am, an impeccable writer and a terrific orator who's brought tremendous trophies home. We thank both of you for being a part of today's event. Now, I request Ashima ma'am to share some encouraging words with the participants. Ashima ma'am.
Hello all.
Hi,
Am I
ma'am.
audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so good morning, and I hope you all are safe and healthy. And first of all, I would like to appreciate Ananya and the OC members for organizing competitions regularly, even during such times. And kudos to all participants for keeping up the essence of debating. And yeah, I look forward to hear different opinions and perspectives on such diverse topics that you have selected. And one thing I would like to say to everybody, including participants and OC members, even if it is not your chance to speak, please try to listen the one who is speaking. I mean, obviously it's not possible for like whole the time, but you can try. We can try our best. And all the best to you, debaters, and may the best win. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I also request Tanisha ma'am to give some insight to the participants.
Hello, everyone. I second every word that Ashima said. And having said that, I just again congratulate all the participants for participating and organizing committee for conducting the event. And I wish every one of you the very best. I hope you enjoy today's event. All the best, guys.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you to both the judges for being with us today. We also have with us the participants, the people who give essence to this event. All the members of Ananya the Unparalleled, including my co-host Khushi, Arushi, Bhargavi, and I, Vidhi, extend a warm welcome to all of you. Your impeccable efforts in the first round brought you here today, and we'd like to congratulate all of you for it. Now, I request Arushi to explain the prize distribution and motions for the debate.
Thank you, Vidhi. The prizes for Vantage have been divided as such. Best Team English will be awarded rupees 1,250. Best Team Hindi will be awarded rupees 1,250. Best Speaker for the motion will be awarded rupees 1,000. Best Speaker against the motion will be awarded rupees 1,000. Runner-up Speaker for the motion will be awarded rupees 500. And runner-up speaker against the motion will be awarded rupees 500. Best interjection will be awarded rupees 500. Vantage has 8 diverse motions and all the participating teams have been allotted one of these 8 motions. The motions are: Motion A, this house would rebuild the Berlin Wall. यह सदन बर्लिन की दीवार का पुनर्निर्माण करेगा. Motion B, this house believes that economic growth is the solution to climatic change. यह सदन मानता है कि आर्थिक विकास जलवायु परिवर्तन का समाधान है. Motion C, this house believes that nepotism is a pseudo privilege. यह सदन मानता है कि भाई भतीजावाद एक छद्म विशेषाधिकार है. Motion D, this house believes evictions of Palestinian families in East Jerusalem was regretful. यह सदन मानता है कि पूर्वी यरूशलेम में फिलिस्तीनी परिवारों का निष्कासन खेदजनक था. Motion E, this house believes that change is not progress. यह सदन मानता है कि परिवर्तन प्रगति नहीं है. Motion F. This house believes philosophy of wantlessness is utopian while materialism is chimera. यह सदन मानता है कि इच्छा रहित होने का दर्शन काल्पनिक आदर्श है, जबकि भौतिकता माया है. Motion G. This house believes that democracy is a Western concept. यह सदन मानता है कि लोकतंत्र एक पश्चिमी अवधारणा है. And the last motion for today, that is motion H, is this house believes that the world does not need religion. यह सदन मानता है कि दुनिया को धर्म की जरूरत नहीं है. Now, all the best to the participants. Now, I request Khushi to explain the rules of the competition. Khushi?
Thank you, Arushi. Before we begin the debate, the rules of the competition will be explained once again. The rules are, before each participant begin their debate, mention your slot number, name, motion, and stance. It will not be counted in your main time. The time limit for each participant is 2 plus 1 minutes, that is 2 minutes for speaking and 1 minute for interjection. The timer will be shared on the screen, and exceeding the time limit will lead to negative marking. Your videos must be turned on when speaking, and under no circumstances will you be allowed to switch them off. You can use paper for reference, but complete paper reading will lead to negative marking. Only one interjection per person is allowed. The request to interject will only be entertained if asked after 1 minute of speaking time is over. The first person to write their slot number in the chat box after 1 minute will get the chance to interject. If the person has already raised one question, then the next interjector will be given the chance. If no interjections are asked, then the participant will be given full marks for their interjection. Your interjection should be in the same language as that of the speaker, regardless of your preferred language. In case of poor connection during the speech, you will get exactly 1 minute to fix the problem. However, if the problem still persists, your slot will be shifted. The decision of the judges will be final and binding. If participants still have any queries, then they can write them in either chat box or text any admins of the WhatsApp group. The OC will get back to you as soon as possible. And now, let's commence the debate with the first participants for the event. I would like to invite slot number 1, Riya Gupta and Abir Harun. I request the participants speaking for the motion to take the virtual stage.
Will the screen be shared for the timer?
I hope it is clearly visible to you.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. You can start speaking. I request you to start speaking, and the timer will start accordingly.
It wasn't Ria here, and I don't think she's here. I was just asking. I'm not slot number 1.
I request the slot number 1 to take the virtual stage. Are they present in the meeting? Riya and Abir? This is the final call for slot number 1. Let's move on to slot number 2, Nitiksha Tyagi and Khyati Parekh. Are you present in the meeting?
Yes, I'm present. I'm Khyati. Nitisha is just give me 10 seconds. She's just joining.
Okay. And who is speaking for the motion?
Nitisha will be speaking for the motion. Just 10 seconds. We were actually supposed to go second, so she took a minute.
No problem.
Yes, I'm so sorry for the delay. Just give me just like 1 minute. She's just joining.
Nitiksha, are you ready?
Just a second. I'm not sure if I'm audible because there's some problem with the device. Am I audible right now?
Yes, you are audible. Please turn on your camera.
All right. Just give me a second.
Oh,
Okay. I hope I'm both audible and visible.
yes, you are clearly audible, but your video is not visible right now.
Is this better? Hi, is
No,
this better?
no, Nitiksha, your video is not visible.
Um, Hello, I would like to request slot
Just
number two
give
to
me a
fix
second.
slot number two. Please fix your issues, and I would like to request OC for moving forward with slot number three.
No, her video is visible to me now. I can see Nitisha's video as well.
In that case, Nitiksha, you can start speaking.
No, but is it like perfectly audible and visible? Because if my internet breaks, it might like be disadvantageous.
Nitiksha, you solve your connection problem. Uh, we will
I'll just
shift your
join through
slot.
another device.
We will shift your slot. Let's move on to slot number 3. Himanshi and Chaitanya, are you present in the meeting?
Yes, we are.
Okay. The participant speaking for the motion, please start speaking.
मैं आपको दिखाई दे रही हूँ?
Yes, you are clearly visible.
ठीक है, तो सबसे पहले मैं अपना स्टांस क्लियर कर देती हूँ। तो नमस्कार, मैं हिमांशी स्लॉट 3 विषय के पुरजोर पक्ष में कि सदन का मत है कि भाई भतीजावाद एक छद्म विशेषाधिकार है को प्रस्तुत करने जा रही हूँ। मेरे 1 2 3 की काउंटिंग पर आप शुरू कर दीजिएगा टाइम। 1 2 3। निर्णायक मंडल को मेरा प्रणाम। अपने वक्तव्य को विस्तृत करने से पूर्व मैं आप सभी को आज के विषय के भार के बारे में समझाना चाहूँ। महोदय, भाई भतीजावाद यानी किसी व्यक्ति को एक ऐसे कार्यस्थल में नौकरी मिल जाना, काम मिल जाना जहां पर पहले से ही उसका कोई परिचित नियुक्त हो, और वहीं पर छद्म विशेषाधिकार यानी मिथ्या विशेषाधिकार। तो यहाँ पर मौजूद सभी जन को मैं पहले तो ये बता दूं कि यह कोई विशेषाधिकार नहीं, अपितु एक बोझ है, एक भार है। क्योंकि यदि कोई व्यक्ति अपने परिचित से प्रेरणा लेकर भी उस कार्य क्षेत्र में अच्छा कार्य करता है, फिर भी उसकी काबिलियत पर संदेह किया जाता है, उससे विसंगत अपेक्षाएं की जाती हैं कि वह उनसे भी अधिक योग्य होगा। इस तथ्य को जानने के बाद भी कि सभी व्यक्ति समान नहीं हो सकते। अब सदन को मैं दूसरा तर्क देते हुए ये कहूंगी कि भाई भतीजावाद चलता बेशक सिफारिश पर हो, परंतु टिकता सदैव काबिलियत पर है। उदाहरण स्वरूप स्टुअर्ट बोर्ड, जो एक क्रिकेटर है, इनके पिता भी एक क्रिकेटर थे, परंतु यह फास्ट बॉलर अपनी मेहनत से बने। हमारा फिल्म जगत, जहां पर फिल्में खानदान के सहारे नहीं अपितु हुनर के सहारे चलती है। हमारा राजनीतिक क्षेत्र, जहां पर विधायकों के बच्चे सरपंची तक के चुनाव हार जाते हैं। अब मैं महोदय आप लोगों को हमारे समाज की सुविधा अनुसार बदल जाने वाली सोच के ऊपर बताना चाहूंगी। तो महोदय, यदि कोई नेता अभिनेता अपने किसी परिचित को संयोग करे तो वह गलत है, किंतु यही सब यदि एक गरीब व्यक्ति के साथ हो तो वह सही हो जाता है, वह उसकी सहायता करना कहलाता है। सरकारी क्षेत्र में किसी की अकस्मात मृत्यु के बाद यदि नौकरी प्राप्त हो जाए तो वह सरकारी संयोग कहलाता है। तो यह कैसा विशेषाधिकार है महोदया? अंत में अपने विचारों को विराम देते हुए मैं यही कहना चाहूंगी कि यह एक छद्म विशेषाधिकार है जिसके मायने हर व्यक्ति के साथ, हर परिस्थिति के साथ बदल जाते हैं, किंतु इधर एक काबिल व्यक्ति ही टिकता है, फिर भी उसकी काबिलियत पर संदेह किया जाता है। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Nitiksha. Participants can write their slot number in the chat box for interjection. Sahil, if you have any query, please write it in the chat box. Slot number 19, you may ask your question.
वेरी वेड सेल, बट मुझे आपने कहा कि ये टिकता काबिलियत पर ही है, तो कांग्रेस जैसी सरकार जिसमें दिग्विजय सिंह, जिसमें पी चिदम्बरम जैसे नेता हैं, वहां पे राहुल गांधी का होना कहां तक सही है, किस हद तक सही है, और हालत कांग्रेस की इन दिनों में देखी जा सकती है?
जी जी महोदय, आपके प्रश्न के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। तो आपके प्रश्न का उत्तर मैं इस तरह से दूंगी कि जैसा कि आपने कहा कि कांग्रेस की हालत खराब है, तो देखिए राहुल गांधी जी जो हैं वो राजनीति में खानदान के सहारे आ तो गए, नेपोटिज्म के सहारे आ तो गए, किंतु टिक वह केवल अपनी काबिलियत पर ही सकते हैं। ये उनको चुनाव में जिताना या हराना है, इसका पूर्ण रूप से जो अधिकार है वो जनता के पास है। जी, तो इसका पूर्ण रूप से जो अधिकार है वो जनता के पास है। तो मेरे कहने का तात्पर्य यही था कि यदि किसी व्यक्ति में काबिलियत है, तो ही फिर चाहे वो नेपोटिज्म से ही क्यों ना हो, वो काबिल व्यक्ति ही उस क्षेत्र में टिक सकता है। यदि उसमें काबिलियत नहीं है तो वो व्यक्ति वहां पर सर्वाइव नहीं कर सकता है। मुझे
महोदय, वो
उम्मीद है
टिके हुए हैं, प्रेसिडेंट है वो इंडियन नेशनल कांग्रेस के।
लेकिन वो इंडिया के प्रेसिडेंट तो नहीं बन
Questioning
पाए
is
हैं ना।
not allowed, Sahil. Sorry to interrupt, but cross questioning is not allowed.
ओके, सॉरी मैम, ओके, टेक केयर।
जी जी, तो वो कांग्रेस के जो प्रेसिडेंट बन गए, किंतु चुनावों में जनता ने उन्हें जितनी बुरी तरह से कांग्रेस को हराया है, कांग्रेस की इतनी बुरी हालत है, तो उसका कारण क्या है कि उनमें काबिलियत नहीं है। इस वजह से वह इस राजनीति के क्षेत्र में नहीं टिक पाए हैं। मुझे उम्मीद है कि आपका उत्तर आपको मिल गया होगा। धन्यवाद।
Thank you. Now the participant speaking against the motion, please start speaking.
Excuse me.
जी, क्या मैं आपको दिखाई और सुनाई दे रहा हूँ?
Just a short reminder before we begin forward. The person who's speaking at the moment, when they have spoken 1 minute of their time, the interjectors, they may start writing their slot number in the chat box. If there are no interjections after the person speaking has completed, it will be considered that there will be no interjections asked for them and they'll be given full marks. So please write your interjections after 1 minute is over, your slot numbers in the chat box, and keep your interjections short and crisp. Yes, Chaitanya, you're visible as well as audible. You may start.
ओके, सबसे पहले मैं अपना स्टांस क्लियर कर देता हूँ। मेरा नाम चैतन्य है, मैं स्लॉट नंबर 3 से हूँ और मैं विषय के विपक्ष में विषय है कि सदन यह मानता है भाई भतीजावाद एक छद्म विशेष अधिकार है। इसके पूर्व और विपक्ष में अपने विचार लेकर आया हूँ। तो 3, 2, 1 की गिनती पर आप शुरुआत कीजिएगा। 3, 2, 1। भाई भतीजावाद एक राजनीतिक शब्दावली है जिसमें लोगों की योग्यता को नजरअंदाज किया जाता है और अयोग्य परिजनों को उच्च पद पर आसीन किया जाता है। भाई भतीजावाद हमारे समाज में अपने जड़े जमाए बैठा हुआ है और यह किसी भी रूप से एक छद्म विशेष अधिकार नहीं है। और इसी बात को साबित करने के लिए मैं सभा में कुछ तर्क समर्पित करना चाहूंगा। मेरा पहला तर्क राजनीति से जुड़ा हुआ है। महोदय, हमें हमेशा से यही सिखाया गया है कि एक राजनीतिक दल के समक्ष सबसे बड़ी चुनौती होती है वंशवादी उत्तराधिकार की। वंशवादी उत्तराधिकार कहता है कि सिर्फ एक ही परिवार के लोग हमेशा शासन करेंगे और किसी भी तरीके का परिवर्तन मान्य नहीं होगा। और इसी बात को साबित करने के लिए मैं भारत की सबसे पुरानी राजनीतिक दल का उदाहरण देना चाहूंगा जिसमें एक ही परिवार के लोग पार्टी के उच्च पदों पर आसीन रहे हैं। आइए महोदय जरा मनोरंजन की ओर प्रकाश डालते हैं। मनोरंजन के क्षेत्र में जितना मुश्किल एक बाहर से आ रहे मनुष्य के लिए अपनी जगह बनाना होता है, उतना ही आसान एक सेलिब्रिटी के बच्चे के लिए होता है। उदाहरण के लिए आप तैमूर अली खान को ले लीजिए, जो पैदा होते ही सुर्खियों में रहा। मेरी पक्ष की वक्ता कहती है कि एक मनुष्य की मृत्यु के बाद उसके परिजनों में से किसी एक को काम दे दिया जाता है। भला यह कैसा वंशवाद का उदाहरण हुआ महोदय? क्योंकि यहाँ तो उस परिजन को किसी उच्च पद पर आसीन नहीं किया जा रहा है, बल्कि उस मनुष्य की योग्यता देखकर उस योग्यता के अनुसार ही उसे काम दिया जाता है। और फिर से मैं सभा में एक उदाहरण देना चाहूंगा कि हमारे माननीय अमित शाह के सुपुत्र जय शाह का क्रिकेट से कोई लेना देना नहीं है, क्रिकेट के मामले में कोई योग्यता नहीं है, फिर भी वो बीसीसीआई के सेक्रेटरी हैं। मेरी पक्ष की वक्ता यह भी कहती है कि जो भाई भतीजावाद वो चलता भले ही सिफारिश से हो, लेकिन वो टिकता अपनी काबिलियत से है। तो ये खुद ही इस बात को अपने आप बोलती हैं कि वो इस बात में विश्वास करती हैं कि जो हमारा भाई भतीजावाद है वो हमारे समाज में एक विशेष अधिकार की तरह मौजूद है। अतः मैं यही कहना चाहूंगा कि भाई भतीजावाद एक छद्म विशेष अधिकार नहीं है, बल्कि यह बहुत ही प्रत्यक्ष रूप से हमारे समाज में मौजूद है, चाहे राजनीति के क्षेत्र में, चाहे मनोरंजन के क्षेत्र में या अन्य किसी क्षेत्र में। धन्यवाद।
Slot number 21, you can ask your interjection.
जी, मेरी आवाज आ रही है साफ तौर पर?
Yes, you're clearly audible.
ओके महोदय, काबिलियत की यहाँ बात हुई है। साफ तौर पर हम देख सकते हैं कि भाई भतीजावाद जो है वो केवल काबिलियत के तौर पर ही हमारे समाज में टिक पाता है। ऐसे कई हमारे पास उदाहरण मिल जाते हैं कि जिनके माता पिता परिवार वाले उसमें है, लेकिन परंतु वे लोग उसमें सही प्रकार से कार्य नहीं कर पाते हैं। इस पर आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
जी महोदय, धन्यवाद आपके प्रश्न के लिए। मैंने अपने वक्तव्य में जिसे कहा कि मैं इस बात का पूर्ण और खंडन करता हूं कि जो भाई भतीजावाद है वो चलता भले ही सिफारिश से हो, लेकिन वो टिकता अपनी काबिलियत से है। लेकिन महोदय, मैं यह कहना चाहूंगा कि भाई भतीजावाद जो है वो लोगों को मौका तो दे देता है, कम से कम आगे चलने का उनको मौका तो मिलता है। बहुत से लोग ऐसे हैं जिनको वो चलने का मौका तक नहीं मिलता है, टिकना तो दूर की बात। लेकिन जो भाई भतीजावाद के कारण जो लोग हैं उनको कम से कम चलने का मौका मिलता है, और एक मौका मिलता है कि वो उस पर्टिकुलर जो वो हमारा क्षेत्र है उसमें वो टिक पाए। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Chaitanya and Himanshi. Now let's call the slot number 4, Purnima Manchanda and Aditi.
We're slot 2 and we're ready with our connection. Can we go next?
Actually, your slot is shifted in the end.
But actually the problem is, excuse me, the problem is that I'm also attending another tournament for which I have to leave, and our slot was second, so I didn't request change. So technically we should be allowed to go second because I have another tournament to attend to, please. That's a humble request.
Also, I don't think the slot number 4 has any issue with that. So if like they want to go ahead, they can. If the OC doesn't have a problem.
Okay, no problem.
Thank
may
you.
go ahead. So
thanks a lot for the accommodation.
Yeah, so speaker speaking for the motion, you may start.
All right. Before I begin, I'll just clarify what our motion is and my stance, and I'll give you a countdown once I'm about to begin. So our motion panel is: this House believes that economic progress leads to climate change, and I'll be the member of proposition. I begin my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Panel, when we're talking of this particular motion, especially as member of proposition, I'd like to start with technological advancement and industrialization as major points because they're relevant to the debate for 3 reasons. 1, they led to the economic progress under consideration, and in the process also to the climate degradation that we're talking about. But lastly, that it's integral for us to sustain technology because we run back to pre-industrial time, means that we will have to think about technology to become eco-friendly rather than thinking of its removal, at which point I say that it's a prerequisite for countries to have technological innovation to be able to tackle climate change. At that point, for this technological innovation to come about, you need a certain financial surplus, be it a developed or a developing country. But because as a developed country, you will have to go ahead and invest in research and experimentation in order to bring about this innovation because of your resourcefulness. But even as a developing country, if you're just going ahead and investing in terms of importing these kinds of innovations from the Western world because they've already produced it, you need certain financial surplus to tackle with the inflation in the imported stuff. Consider the electronic vehicles that might come to India and what it will cost us, right? At that point, it is imperative for you to have financial surplus if you want to sustain your economic progress through technological innovation. But secondly, panel, on the idea of technological innovation and how it leads to the changing of material reality of people, which means that if you go ahead and expunge the vehicles that create carbon emissions, you won't have to be constantly perturbed about how individuals are polluting by using bad vehicles, because they simply don't exist because of technological innovations, which means that this is going to ensure a swift and rampant change in the society for the better, where people will have no other option but to be behaviorally conducive towards environment change because they have no other option to switching to bad vehicles. They simply don't exist. That is why we think it's a more assured reform in the first place with economic progress. But thirdly, panel, on the idea of how technological innovation and economic progress is extremely important, because economic progress is the first priority of any given country. Without that, they can't think of things like climate change, because they think of economic progress as more important and vulnerability as more insecure, and that is why they tend to go ahead and cater to that first. For that reason, extremely proud to propose. I hope there was no background noise.
No, it was fine. Slot number 27, you may ask your interjection.
Okay. So, Khyati, as you said that everything is possible with economic progress, and we can actually tackle all the climate issues through economic backing. So, I just wanna ask you that, don't you think that the coronavirus pandemic that is going on since the last 3 years even the Tonga volcanic eruption, that whole have been the consequence of the so-called financial progress in the world that have been taking place, the scientific progress. So don't you think that economy cannot back the millions of lives? Economy cannot back the health loss that has been caused worldwide. What's your take on that?
All right. First of all, I don't see how the correlation to pandemic and economic progress has been made. But even if it was true that yes, economic progress, because it was hinged on industrialization, has created these kind of a deterioration, is something that we don't wash our hands of. We concede that that is the case. But now that we have evolved to the level we have, what do we do from here after? I think it's important for us to realize that once you have the economic resources to go ahead and evolve, reform technology, because there's no other option left, you'll be better able to preserve environment. Why? Because technology is here to stay and innovation has to come about, which will come about only when you have financial surplus. So even though money was the reason for why industrialization and innovation was the reason for why deterioration happened, it can also become the reason for how reformation will happen, as a result of which more ecologically sustainable models of technology will be introduced. And that was my stance in its entirety, and that's been made quite clear. I hope that answers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nitisha.
Hi.
Now I request the participant against the motion to start speaking.
A little clarification before that, the interjector referred to the proposition as Khyati. So just for the judges, speaker 1 was Nitisha. I am the speaker 2. My name is Khyati and we're slot 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll begin on the count of 3, 2, 1. So greetings everybody. Panel, why do we think that this notion is going to backfire? Panel, firstly, we need to understand that the proposition's case lacked a certain amount of consideration for the status quo and a cost-benefit analysis for doing this, which is why my first constructive panel is that it is true that for most nations, economic development is the ultimate goal, which is the entire biggest reason why this notion of economic growth as a solution to climate change will backfire, because it will give nations an opportunity to be uncooperative when it comes to actions related to climate change. Panel, understand that the moment you go ahead and say that it is economic growth in itself that is the solution, the countries will start legitimizing their priorities of economic growth over climate change, while actually saying or pretending that they're actually working towards a better climate, which is not true. But secondly, panel, this notion of economic growth as a solution does not cater to the inequalities in terms of economic growth and climate change throughout the countries. Because understand, panel, that the moment you go ahead and claim that economic growth is the one that's going to help you have a better climate, it is going to put an extreme amount of undue pressure on the developing countries, the countries that actually face the harshest brunt of climate change. We're putting pressure on these countries to develop as rapidly as possible if they ever aspire to have a nice climate. Whereas panel, for countries like America or the developed countries, this entire thing is going to be cakewalk. All this will lead to is the giving up without even trying, due to a collapse of their industries or a collapse of their economy due to forced expansion. But lastly, panel, why do we think that this notion is flawed? It is flawed, panel, because it will make the developed countries of the West completely stop cooperating or trying to reduce their process of industrialization so that other countries can have a chance to do so without having to deplete the environment for all of us even further. Panel, what we need right now is pro-social behavior, wherein even if the developed countries are maybe considered responsible for a lot of our current climate problems, the least they can do is be willing to share that economic resources, to share those technological resources with the developing countries, so that those developing countries don't have to go through the entire process of industrialization again, like I said, worsening the climate for all of us even further. This is a possibility, panel, that will be completely scrapped off if we go ahead and say that economic growth is the solution to climate change. So panel, for all these reasons, we're saying that it does not cater to inequalities and it will put undue pressure on the developing countries, because it will give countries a chance to start justifying them prioritizing economy over climate change, and also because it will make developed countries unaccountable and irresponsible. For all these reasons, panel, extremely proud to oppose.
Thank you, Nitisha and Khyati. Next is slot number 4, Purnima Manchanda and Aditi. Are you present in the meeting?
I didn't have any interjections.
No, you have received no interjection. No worries, you will get full marks for your interjection.
Thank you. Thank you.
Participants are requested to write their slot numbers only after 1 minute. Slot number 4, are you present in the meeting?
Yes.
So the participant speaking for the motion, please start speaking.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you're clearly audible and visible.
Great. And I'm so sorry for any background noise as such. And apart from that, I'll start. Greetings panel, this is Purnima Manchanda from slot number 4 and I'll go for the motion D. This house believes that evictions of Palestinian families in East Jerusalem was regretful. So I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. So panel, first things first, let me characterize the motion for you all. The massive Israel-Palestine conflict has been fueled with the Israeli court's ruling of the eviction of Palestinian families from their homes in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of occupied East Jerusalem. The Jewish families can reclaim the property, however, the Palestinians cannot, as the law prevents them to. Is this fair? Arguments may come that Israel claims that the land belongs to them and they're just asking for what is theirs and also allowing the Palestinians to stay in their houses as protected tenants. They just have to recognize the Jews to be the true landholders and pay an annual fee to them. But where are Palestinians' rights on these properties and their claims? The law provides no equivalent legal support to them, but substantially avoided that and getting them into agreements. This forceful and unjust eviction has been largely denounced by many international observers like European Union, United Nations Human Rights High Commission as well, who believe equally that the violation and the evictions violate Israel's obligations under the international law. And the East Jerusalem remains a part of the occupied Palestinian territory in which the international humanitarian law applies. So the occupying power must respect their rights. Talking about power, so Israel has one of the most powerful militaries in the world, and not to mention one of the most advanced defense systems as well. Knowing this fact, was it right on the part of Israel to plan such unjust laws and such attacks just to retaliate? Fairly not. Moving on to the moral and humanitarian ground, so it was equally unjust and wrong to uproot people from their houses and their own roots, that too under the umbrella of massive attacks. Apart from the financial losses, there's an immense amount of implicit cost in terms of psychological losses and extreme distress attached as well. The lengthy legal procedures are not well suited to everyone. The lengthy legal procedures along with that, and those who are not well versed with the legalities might get ripped off by many settlers or the authorities. The law doesn't help them, but instead adds to their distress. With this, I conclude by saying that the very idea of eviction is totally just not acceptable, and hence I prove my stance.
Slot number 43, you may ask your question.
Yeah. Thank you. Purnima, I agree with your words, but I also feel that, the state of Palestine is just like that of a small boy fighting a larger boy and then getting beaten up by him. And then we all other people having a regret that, oh, he was a small person, he did not have that power. And now that he's beaten up, we have, feelings for him. Because I feel that, the people of Palestine staying in the Gaza Strip, those people are the ones who have been, touching Israel for no reason and having fights among the two nations. Israel, on the other hand, in the beginning also, Israel was the country who was looking forward to having a discussion, a proper discussion to resolve the issues. But Gaza Strip people of the Palestinians, they first of all attacked the people of Israel, and that is where Israel took action. So I just want to want you to have your views on this.
Okay, so thank you for the question. I'll begin. You can start the timer. I'll begin. Okay, so thank you for the question. Firstly, here we are not talking, the burden of the debate is not to prove who's the right guy or who's the wrong guy, whether it was Israel or Palestine who was at the right place or the wrong place. Here we have to discuss that the eviction, that we are focusing, totally focusing on the eviction, whether it was right or wrong. So talking about the eviction aspect, it was totally unjust to do that because of many, as the reasons I've explained, the legalities, the legal reasons, the humanitarian reasons. These are the moral and the legal aspects. But talking about your question that whether it was right or not, or it was the Palestinians' fault that they were attacking the Israel and what all happened in the Gaza Strip. See, firstly, we need to understand that if we have to look who's right or who's wrong, we have to go back in history. And here we're not dealing and going back in history and looking at the series of events that happened. Since there were like the number of laws that were being applied on Israel and Palestine as well, the Palestinian people, they had to fight for their own rights, and it was totally just for them to fight against what all happened with them. What all happened with them was totally unjust and wrong. So they had to retaliate. But to think that they had to retaliate just because it has less power or more power, that is totally not the point of the debate here. I hope that answers your question.
Participants are requested to keep their answers short and crisp so that it can be easily understood. Now I request the participants speaking against the motion to start speaking.
Hopefully I'm visible and audible to you.
Yes, you're clearly visible and audible.
Thank you. Greetings, panel. I'm Aditi, slot number 4, speaking against the motion. The motion is motion D, that this house believes that eviction of Palestinian families was regretful. I'll start, just give me 1 second, sorry. I'll start in 3, 2, 1. So I'll first reiterate the motion on my side of the house. That is, the house does not believe that the eviction, sorry, the timer hasn't started. So just give me 1 second. Can we like begin again? Is it the time lagging for me? Excuse me. Am I audible?
Is timer visible to you?
Just give me 1 second. I think the things are lagging on my. Yeah, now it's visible to me. So I'll start again and I'll give a count of 3, right? Am I audible?
You may start again. You may start again.
Okay. Greetings, panel. I'm Aditi, slot number 4, speaking against the motion. The motion is motion D. That is, the House believes that the eviction of Palestinian families was regretful. I'll start on a count of 3, 2, 1. I'll first reiterate the motion on my side of the house, that the house does not believe that the eviction of Palestinian families was regretful. So panel, we first need to understand what is exactly the issue. So we're basically talking about the long persisting Palestinian-Israel war, which dates back to something around 1948 when we had the Arab-Israel war, right? And this issue has resurfaced because of the recent eviction of Palestinian families from the East Jerusalem area, which is now under the annexation of the Israel. And this issue along with it carries a lot of misinformation, which forms the crux of the debate and which my proposition needs to understand. Now, the very first burden that we share here is about the property rights and the real estate perspective. First of all, the proposition needs to know that there is a clear misinformation, and the land where at presently the Palestinians are settled is actually belonging to the Jewish settlers. And now what is happening? They're coming back and they're reclaiming their property. It's just that their own land, right? And they're doing so legally because the Israel legal rights permits them to do so. Now the proposition comes in and tells me that the Palestinians are not allowed to do so. I agree with that, but that is not because the Israel state is not allowing them to do so, but it is because their own Jordanian government sequestered the land and denied them the entitlement to that particular land. Now the second burden that we share here is about the humanitarian perspective. So let's assume that we allow the Palestinians to stay, right? We allow them to stay, and let's not allow Jewish to settle. So panel, isn't now the humanitarian grounds evaded? Now you're denying the rights to the Jews, the property rights of the Jews, right? The second thing that the proposition might come and claim is the ethnic cleansing. Panel, this land always belonged to the Jewish, and they're now being relocated. It's nothing like the Palestinians are being removed and only the Jewish. This had been the Jewish land, and they're just being relocated, right? So this is merely an issue. This is merely the property issue, and this is being unnecessarily done. There's nothing about being regretful about eviction, right? Thank you. With this, I rest my case. Proud to oppose. Open for questions.
Slot number 43, you may ask your interjection.
Yeah, thank you. Aditi, I feel that your words were good, but I at the same time feel that although the land was of the people of Israel because they were Jews and all, but even in our own country, there's a law that if a tenant is staying for, let's say, 20 years, he can reclaim that house property legally. I'm talking legally. And further, even on the humanitarian basis, I feel that death of 13 people, where 9 were kids, I guess, that was a shame on Israel from the whole world. So, what are your views on that?
Perfect. Thank you so much. So as I said, that legally, if you're talking about the legal perspective, then legally there is nothing wrong happening. The Jews are allowed to claim their land because they have the legal right to do so, and the Israel state has allowed them. The Israel state would have also allowed the Palestinians to reclaim the land that they had in Israel, and from which they were evicted during the Arab-Israel war, something they had to flee away. But their own Jordanian government sequestered the land, and they were not given the entire entitlement to that land because of their own Jordanian government. There's nothing of the Israel state. Coming to the humanitarian perspective, I believe that that is something that to be mourned of and is not acceptable on any humanitarian grounds of the children or anyone, right? But if in case we are now disallowing the Jews to settle, where should the Jewish go? Now isn't the humanitarian perspective coming? Now isn't their rights being denied? Definitely what the Israel state should do is the Palestinians should be given time. There should be certain other perspective, like they can be now also focus on one thing, that the Palestinians have been allowed to stay if they acknowledge the ownership of the Jews, right? They'll be allowed to stay there as tenants. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Purnima and Aditi. Next slot is slot number 5, Samar Raza and Anubhav Singh. Are you present in the meeting?
हेलो हेलो
Yes, Anubhav.
जी मैं अनुभव के फोन से, मैं उनका टीममेट हूँ, पक्ष से समर रजा।
Are you speaking for the motion?
हाँ जी मैम, मैं पक्ष में बोल रहा हूँ, मैं समर हूँ मैम, मैं अनुभव के फोन से अभी कर रहा हूँ।
Right. So this is Samar, you may start speaking.
अच्छा जी मैम, कृपया 3, 2, 1 के साथ आप इसको शुरू कर दीजिएगा। जी ओके।
ओके समर।
2, 1 स्टार्ट। सदन की गरिमा को मेरा नमन। सदन में बैठे हुए सभी बुद्धिजीवियों को मेरा प्रणाम। जैसा कि हमारे आज का विषय है कि परिवर्तन प्रगति नहीं है, मैं इसके पुरजोर समर्थन में अपने विचार यहाँ पर रखने हेतु उपस्थित हुआ हूँ। देखिए महोदय, सबसे पहले हमें 2 चीजों को समझना पड़ेगा, परिवर्तन और प्रगति। ये जो 2 मूल चूल शब्द हैं हमारे विषय में, उन दोनों को समझना होगा। सबसे पहले समझते हैं कि परिवर्तन क्या होता है। देखिए परिवर्तन का मतलब होता है किसी भी व्यक्ति, वस्तु या किसी भी चीज की वर्तमान ढांचागत परिस्थिति में बदलाव होना। अब वो बदलाव सूक्ष्म से सूक्ष्म हो या फिर विशाल से विशाल। अब इसमें एक और शब्द है, वो है प्रगति। अब प्रगति का मतलब समझते हैं। प्रगति का मतलब होता है किसी भी चीज की वर्तमान स्थिति से और बेहतर स्थिति की ओर जाना, यानी उसकी जो भी उसमें परिवर्तन हो रहा है वो बेहतर हो और अच्छा हो, तब हम उसको प्रगति कहेंगे। अब हमें यह समझने की जरूरत है कि जब किसी भी चीज में बदलाव होता है, जब किसी भी चीज में परिवर्तन आता है, तो जरूरी नहीं है कि वो हमेशा प्रगति ही कहलाए। हम उसी परिवर्तन को प्रगति कह सकते हैं जिसमें बदलाव सकारात्मक हो। अभी समझिए कि यदि बदलाव सकारात्मकता की ओर अग्रसर है, तभी जाकर हम उसको प्रगति कहेंगे। अगर वो नकारात्मकता की ओर अग्रसर है, तो कभी हम उसको प्रगति नहीं कह सकते। यदि वो नकारात्मकता की ओर अग्रसर है, तो वो दुर्गति बन जाता है। एक छोटा सा उदाहरण देकर मैं समझाता हूँ। एक उदाहरण है भारत का, आप देखेंगे अभी हंगर इंडेक्स आया, भूख सूचकांक में भारत नीचे की ओर गिर गया, तो हम इसको प्रगति नहीं कहेंगे, इसको हम दुर्गति कहेंगे। दूसरा एक राजनीतिक उदाहरण देकर समझाता हूँ। कांग्रेस की सीट टोटल थी, मान लीजिए 250 सीट या 200 सीट थी। अगला जब इलेक्शन हुआ, लोकसभा इलेक्शन, उसमें कांग्रेस की सीट गिरकर आ गई 40 या 44 पर, तो फिर इसको प्रगति नहीं कहेंगे कि कांग्रेस पार्टी ने प्रगति की है, बल्कि इसको दुर्गति कहा जाएगा। इसीलिए मैं इसका समर्थन कर रहा हूं कि किसी भी परिवर्तन को प्रगति नहीं कह सकते हैं, क्योंकि प्रगति हमेशा 2 तरीके में ही होती है। या तो वो हमेशा जो है अच्छे की तरफ होती है, या फिर बुरे की तरफ होती है, सीधी सी बात है। तो यदि वो बुरे की तरफ है, तो फिर उसको हम प्रगति नहीं कहते, वो तो दुर्गति बन जाता है। इसलिए कोई भी परिवर्तन, किसी भी चीज के मूलगत जो ढांचा है, उसका मूलभूत ढांचा, यदि उसमें सूक्ष्म या विशाल परिवर्तन होता है, तो उसको हम प्रगति नहीं कह सकते, क्योंकि प्रगति तभी तो होगा यदि वो बेहतर स्थिति की तरफ जाए। अगर वो बेहतर नहीं हो रहा और अच्छा नहीं बन पा रहा है, तो फिर वो प्रगति नहीं कहलाएगा, बल्कि उसको हम दुर्गति कहते हैं। इसी के लिए मैं आज के विषय के पुरजोर समर्थन में हूं कि परिवर्तन प्रगति नहीं है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
Slot number 2, you may ask your question.
थैंक यू फॉर द रिकॉग्निशन। मेरा सवाल ये है कि क्या आपको कि गलतियां करना या गलत चीज का डिसीजन ले लेना, क्या ये ह्यूमन नेचर के लिए फंडामेंटल नहीं है? अगर हम कुछ करते भी है अच्छा सोच के, और अगर वो गलत जगह चला जाता है, जैसे आपने कहा प्रगति अगर गलत ओर चली जाती है, उससे जो सीखने को मिलता है ताकि हम आगे जाके वो गलती ना करें, क्या ये प्रगति नहीं है? क्या यही पूरा रीजन नहीं है कि हमें काम करते रहना चाहिए, बदलाव करते रहना चाहिए, ताकि हम सीखते रहे कि सही क्या है?
जी महोदय, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद प्रश्न के लिए। जी महोदय, देखिए अंतर होता है प्रगति में और प्रायश्चित, दोनों में अंतर होता है। प्रगति का मतलब ये नहीं होता है कि आप उस चीज की तरफ कर रहे हैं तो प्रगति होता है। प्रगति मतलब मैंने क्या कहा कि आपकी जो मूलगत ढांचा है, यदि उसमें बदलाव होगा और बेहतर की तरफ जाएंगे, तभी वो प्रगति कहलाएगा। जैसे कांग्रेस पार्टी का मैंने एग्जांपल दिया था। अब कांग्रेस पार्टी अगर हारती है, फिर बैठ करके वो उसका प्रायश्चित कहें कि नहीं ठीक, हमसे गलती हो गई, लेकिन यदि अगले विधानसभा चुनाव में या अगले लोकसभा चुनाव में उनकी सीट 40 थी, 40 से घटकर 30 आ जाए, तो महोदय हम इसको प्रगति थोड़ी कहेंगे। हाँ मानते हैं आप अपने प्रायश्चित करिए कि नहीं हमसे यहाँ पर गलती हुई, ये गलती हुई, आप मानिए सारी चीजें उस पर काम करिए, लेकिन जो मूलगत ढांचा उसमें जब बदलाव ही नहीं आया, आपकी सीट जो 40 थी वो 40 की 40 रह गई या 40 से 30 पर आ गई, तो प्रगति थोड़ी कहलाएगा। प्रगति मैंने क्या बोला, इसलिए तो मैंने कहा कि उसके मूलगत ढांचा में बदलाव है, जब वो सकारात्मक बदलाव आता है। भाई जब बदलाव आया ही नहीं सकारात्मक, तो आप उसको कैसे कहते हैं? भाई सीट जब वो बढ़ी ही नहीं, तो कैसे आप उसको वो प्रगति कह सकते हैं? यही बात है महोदय। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Samar. Now the participant speaking against the motion, please start speaking.
जी महोदय, मैं स्पष्ट रूप से सुनाई और दिखाई दे रहा हूँ।
Yes, you are clearly visible and audible.
हाँ जी, मैं 1 2 3 पर शुरू करूंगा और अब स्टार्ट करेगा टाइमर। 1 2 3। सदन की गरिमा को अभिनंदन। सदन में प्रस्तावित आज का जो विषय है कि परिवर्तन प्रगति नहीं है, इस विषय के पुरजोर विपक्ष में महोदय, विषय के केंद्र बिंदु में जो दो शब्द हम पढ़ते हैं कि परिवर्तन और प्रगति, अब इन दोनों शब्दों को जिस तरीके से मेरे साथी वक्ता ने अलग अलग नजरिए से देखा, असल में ये दोनों शब्द एक कोएग्जिस्टेंस फॉर्म में आते हैं, जहां पर दोनों का एक दूसरे से लगाव है और दोनों की पहचान एक दूसरे से जुड़ी हुई है। जिस परिवर्तन को हम प्रगति से अलग कर देते हैं, असल में कोई भी परिवर्तन बिना प्रगति के नहीं हो सकता, कोई भी प्रगति बिना परिवर्तन के नहीं हो सकती। अब इसको समझने की कोशिश करते हैं। जिस फॉर्म में ये उदाहरण देकर चले जाते हैं, कांग्रेस पार्टी का फॉर्म देते हैं और कहीं ना कहीं हंगर इंडेक्स की बात करके चले जाते हैं, इनको समझने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए कि प्रगति की जो बात हम करते हैं वो किस परिदृश्य में कर रहे हैं, किस परिप्रेक्ष्य में कर रहे हैं, किस परिस्थिति में कर रहे हैं और किस उद्देश्य के साथ कर रहे हैं। इसकी परिभाषा व्यक्ति तो व्यक्ति बदलती रहती है। आत्मनिष्ठता जिसे हम करते हैं, सब्जेक्टिविटी की बात करते हैं, प्रगति की जो हम परिभाषा देते हैं, इस बात को ध्यान में हमेशा रखना चाहिए। परिवर्तन, जिस परिवर्तन को आप कहीं ना कहीं प्रगति को हमेशा, जिस समाज में हम रहते हैं, सकारात्मक रवैये से, सकारात्मक सोच के साथ जोड़ा जाता है, असल में वो एक नजरिए की बात होती है। जैसे कांग्रेस पार्टी का आप उदाहरण देकर चले जाते हैं, आप कांग्रेस पार्टी के लिए वो कहीं ना कहीं प्रगति, बीजेपी के लिए वो प्रगति हो सकती है, लेकिन कांग्रेस पार्टी के लिए कहीं ना कहीं वो नकारात्मक प्रगति होगी, क्योंकि वो नीचे गिर रहा है। असल में दुर्गति का दूसरा रूप जो है नकारात्मक प्रगति लेकर आता है। तो इससे हम ये समझ पाते हैं कि जिस स्थिति में हम चल रहे हैं, जिस समाज में चल रहे हैं, समाज में जब हम आगे बढ़ते हैं, तो एक दूसरा फ्लो जो होता है, जो नीचे गिर रहा है, वो भी कहीं ना कहीं प्रगति ही कर रहा है, वो नकारात्मक प्रगति कर रहा है। असल में वो परिवर्तन से जुड़ा हुआ है। तो उसका जो कोएग्जिस्टेंस वाली फॉर्म की बात हो रही है, उससे हम समझने की कोशिश करते हैं कि दोनों का एक दूसरे से इंटरलिंक है। समाज में उदाहरण के रूप में कोई ऐसी चीज नहीं है जहां पर बिना परिवर्तन के प्रगति आई हो और बिना प्रगति के परिवर्तन आया हो। तो इस बात से, इन तर्कों से हम समझ पा रहे हैं कि प्रगति का जो एक स्वरूप होता है वो व्यापक होता है, और वो व्यापक की जो मूल जड़ होती है उसमें परिवर्तन होता है, और बिना परिवर्तन के प्रगति नहीं आ सकती, बिना प्रगति के परिवर्तन नहीं आ सकता। तो इन्हीं तर्कों और तथ्यों को समेटते हुए बात को मैं यहाँ पर रखना चाहूंगा कि बहुत ही बहुआयामी परिप्रेक्ष्य इसका होता है। इस बहुआयामी परिप्रेक्ष्य में परिवर्तन एक मूल केंद्र बिंदु होता है, और हमारे नजरिए पर, हमारे समाज पर, हमारी सोच पर और हमारी मूलभूत आवश्यकताओं पर निर्भर करता है कि वो हमारे लिए परिवर्तन है कि हमारे लिए प्रगति है। धन्यवाद।
Slot number 21, you may ask your question.
जी महोदय, प्रगति जो की होती है, प्रगति का क्या मतलब होता है? सुधार। परंतु जब परिवर्तन देखते हैं, परिवर्तन कई गलत प्रकार के भी आते हैं, तो आप उसको सुधार से कैसे जोड़ सकते हैं?
जी, मैं जवाब देता हूँ। मैंने अपने वक्तव्य में भी यही कहा कि आप जिस नजरिए से देख रही हैं वो एक फोकल पॉइंट नाम की चीज होती है कि आप इस वक्त जिस नजरिए से देख रही हैं, जहां पर खड़ी हैं, आपकी वो यथास्थिति क्या है। इंसान की एक इच्छा शक्ति होती है, जहां पर उसकी कुछ विलिंग पावर होती है, वो ये चाहता है। अगर वो चीज घटित हो रही है तो उसके लिए वो प्रगति है। सामने वाले के लिए हो सकता है कि वो प्रगति नहीं हो, क्योंकि यहाँ पर आपकी आवश्यकताएं, आपका समाज, आपकी मनोवैज्ञानिक सोच पर डिपेंड करता है कि आप क्या चाहते हैं, क्या नहीं चाहते हैं। इस आधार पर कोई भी चीज हमारे लिए, भारत देश के लिए जो प्रगति हो सकती है, पाकिस्तान के लिए प्रगति नहीं है, क्योंकि कहीं ना कहीं उसका एक नकारात्मक प्रगति का ही स्वरूप है। तो प्रगति के जो दो मूल एस्पेक्ट की मैं बात कर रहा हूं, सकारात्मक और नकारात्मक, दोनों प्रगति से जुड़े हुए हैं, प्रगति परिवर्तन से जुड़ा हुआ है। तो इन शब्दों की गहन चिंतनशीलता को समझते हुए हमें कोशिश करनी चाहिए कि दोनों का जो एग्जिस्टेंस की मैं बात लगातार कर रहा हूं, एक दूसरे से जुड़े हुए हैं। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Samar and Anubhav. Next slot is slot number 6, Samriddhi Rehlon and Amrita K. Are you both present in the meeting?
Yes, I'm present. Can you give me 10 seconds, please?
Sure.
Okay, am I visible and audible?
Yes, you are clearly visible and audible.
Thank you. Okay, I have my notes here. I'll just let you know about my motion. So my motion is this house believes the philosophy of wantlessness is utopian, while materialism is chimera. While materialism is chimera. Hold on, please. Okay, I'll be speaking for the motion, and I'm starting now. Okay. Wantlessness necessarily refers to the rank absence of all kinds of desires. So by definition, there is no space for the presence of desires under the premise of materialism. So this implies that a life with minimal want is still not a life without wantlessness. So say, for example, if a person chooses to renounce everything and live a completely spiritual life without any wants, understand that the want to live a life without wantlessness is still a want at the end of the day. They still want something. This proves the fact that wantlessness as a philosophy in itself is paradoxical and contradictory in nature. It is a flawed and idealistic concept which is unattainable. That is the textbook definition of a utopian ideology. Materialism, however, stands for the pursuit and the belief system that you can find happiness in material things and choosing them and projecting them as your goalposts or endpoints for happiness. Therefore, Alfred Marshall, one of the pioneering economists, proposed the very rightful theory that human wants are unlimited by nature, but while materials or resources to fulfill such wants are limited. This altogether restricts the scope of materialism and brings it back to the point that materialism, as an example, say consumerism, you can only entertain consumerism to a certain extent because you're constantly reaching out for things and then you're reaching out for the next best thing, and there is no standard point of satisfaction, and it becomes a mirage and a vicious cycle. What we do advocate for, however, is the equilibrium and balance of a healthy number of wants in case of wantlessness and a proportionate search towards materialism in order to bring those concepts under prevalence, because materialism in this case becomes a chimera or disillusion search because you're never finding a certain end goal of satisfaction, that is to say happiness at any certain point in time. Thank you.
Slot number 45, you may ask your question.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So my question is that how can you say that we can't live the life without the need of materialism, when there are lot of great examples who they live their life without choosing the materialism, like Swami Vivekananda, who was happy in their life without having the need of any materialism life.
Materialism stands for the core belief that you need that you find happiness in materialistic or inanimate objects. To live a bare minimum life of survival, you still need clothes, and that is linked to, I never said you can't have materialism, you can't live a life without materialism. I said you can't live a life without wantlessness, because to live a life without wantlessness and saying that in itself is propagating the belief that wantlessness is something that can be achieved. It is utopian in nature, so it cannot. You taking that example of Swami Vivekananda, he stood for a fact of a minimalistic life. A minimalistic life is still partly materialistic in nature, because you still need food, you still need water. Those are still materials and resources used to fulfill the wants or the physiological needs of, say, nourishment and growth and survival, and that is still on a very spiritual and basic level needed for a man or woman or the humans to survive. I hope that answers this question.
Participants speaking against the motion, you may start.
Right. Please give me a few moments, please. Right. I hope I am clearly visible and audible well, and that there's no background disruptions on my side. Having said that, hello, everyone. Okay. Right. Thank you. Having said that, hello, everyone. I have the same motion as that of Samriddhi, and I will be speaking against it. That is, I'm in the opposition. I will be starting on a backward count of 3. So 3, 2, 1, start. Now, my fellow debater has made quite some noteworthy points, but I do not concede to them. I do not quite concede to them. For example, in defining wantlessness, they or she had asserted, if I may address them as that way, had asserted that wantlessness is the want of attaining a state of desirelessness or no desire. Whereas I believe that wantlessness is the suppression of the impulse to obtain that which is desired. First of all, I would like to point out firmly that I proclaim here my belief that wantlessness is attainable and materialism is conceivable. And with regard to wantlessness, I would like to state that the human civilization with respect to lifestyle and philosophy predominantly followed its principles since early periods in history. We also have various texts, both religious and historical in nature, describing in elaborate detail the experiences and journeys of people like Mahavira and Gautam Buddha as they dedicated themselves to a life of no desire, that is wantlessness. Their disciples and followers too followed similar lifestyles, and to this day we see people from these sects and otherwise who maintain a degree of austerity that does justice to the concept in question. The point being that if such collective and lifestyles and practices could be adopted and implemented in society in that period, then they can very well be done so today also, especially when certain sections of the society, as mentioned before, are already living out this philosophy to its fullest. My point being is that wantlessness is not utopian, and it cannot be utopian because this notion as a state of being has already been achieved by our predecessors. Now, moving on to materialism, I would like to assert that the nature of modern lifestyles is predominantly materialistic, whether one considers its manifestation as the desire for material objects for the purpose of survival and sustenance, or whether it is the fulfillment of desires through abstract attainments. Most contemporary scholars concede that the world as a whole has adopted a consumerist culture, which directly correlates to the point of contention. Even metaphysical notions like self-image and identity are subject to materialistic influences. And at this point, panel, I would like to say that if materialism was chimera and it was illusionary, then that would imply that we as people, as society, and as human beings that are constructs of materialistic inputs are also illusionary and non-existent, which overrides our rationality, our ethics, and our morality, which is a paradox in itself. Ergo, materialism is not chimera, it is very much a tangible fragment of reality. I would concede with my opponent that materialism and wantlessness are part of the same continuum, and that
you have exceeded your time limit.
Right. I would like to rest my case here that materialism and wantlessness are part of the same continuum. Thank you. I rest my case. Proud to oppose.
You may ask your interjection, slot number 14.
Hi, am I completely audible here?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So in your speech, you said about Buddha and he lived a life without any desires. Attaining self-actualization, that could be a desire for him, don't you think?
See, that I mentioned in my speech, I think in the beginning itself, that I can't see the timer for the interjection. Is it just me?
It is visible to you?
Yeah, it is visible. Okay, right. It's big on the camera. See, I mentioned in my speech before that wantlessness in itself is not a desire to have no desire, which in itself is paradoxical, as my fellow debater with the opposite stance stated. Rather, it is the suppression of the impulse to obtain what is being desired. Okay. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, pretty clear.
Thank you, Samriddhi and Amrita. Next slot is slot number 7, Daffodil Suresh and Sadgi Chaturvedi. Are you both present in the meeting?
Yes, we are present.
Okay, then the participant speaking for the motion, you may start.
Yeah, am I audible and am I visible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so hi, my name is Daffodil Suresh. I'm slot number 7 and I'm proposition for the motion, democracy is a Western concept. So I'll begin in 3, 2, 1, man. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Firstly, looking backwards in time, the world was firstly governed by tribesmanship and monarchy, and the very idea of democracy was developed in Athens during the 5th century BC. Now, one cannot deny the fact that indeed this originated in the West. Now, the trend for democracy was followed after the American War of Independence. Looking forward, whenever the idea of democracy was installed by the West into the eastern regions of the world, now here by the West, I mean the West of the world map. Okay, it tends to collapse, be it in Vietnam, Iran, or Afghanistan. Since this trend is seen to be as a Western influence, it was seen as an invasion of ideology in many countries, and hence the collapse. People who felt that democracy is a Western idea often despised the very ideology seeping into their countries and often rejected it, like the Bhutanese people. Secondly, if we look into the democratic values, it kind of seems similar to the Western values in a Western sense. Now, let's take liberalism, for example. This term is so fluid that it does not have a fixed definition. But during the democratization of Iran by America, liberalism's basic crust was what the Americans followed. When this did not follow up with the local people revolted, and thus leading to the Islamic Revolution of Iran. Hence, democracy in many parts of the world is still viewed as a Western concept because it includes Western definitions for universal values. Now, thirdly, for example, let's take the democratic voting into aviation industries, where there are two pilots, candidate 1 and candidate 2, where candidate 1 promises that he or she shall fly according to the international aviation laws, while candidate 2 promises that he or she shall allow everyone to fly business class. Now, most people will choose candidate 2, resulting in a plane crash. Similarly, democracy not just requires literate people, but also educated people to run the government. Since the West was in fact more educated on the time scale, democracy is indeed still a Western concept, and proud to propose. Thank you.
Slot number 10, you may ask your interjection.
Thank you so much, Chair, for the recognition. My question to the speaker is that Mahatma Bodh himself was born into a Sakya Ganasangha, which is a democratic republic. Thereafter, many dynasty came. You talk about the Gupta dynasty, the Vardhan dynasty, the Mauryan dynasty. All of them followed the principles of democracy, where one elects the leader and republic. And how in such situations can you grant or how can you take the Western to be the Indians to be the influence of the West, or grant every aspect of democracy to the West? That's my question.
Could you repeat the question, but slowly, like a little bit slowly?
Am I allowed to? Chair, can I repeat my question?
Yes, you may repeat your question.
Okay, thank you so much. My question to the speaker is that Mahatma Bodh himself was born into a Sakya Ganasangha. A Ganasangha is a democratic republic. After that, the dynasties of Mauryan dynasty, Vardhan dynasty, Gupta dynasty, they had the prevalence of democracy. Then in such situations, how can you ignore the Indian history and take all the let West take all the credit of all the democratic ideals?
Right, okay. So begin my timer in 3, 2, 1. Firstly, I would like to correct your history. Ganasangha indeed means democratic values, but it did not include democratic values. It was an oligarchy. In an oligarchy, if I assume that you don't know, oligarchy is in fact people, there are selected people, number of selected people who are taken from bureaucracy or aristocracy to come form a government and rule the country. Buddha was born in such a Ganasangha, which was already belonging to the aristocracy. Now, if aristocratical people goes on forming the government, then how is it democracy? It's not democracy. It defies the very idea of democracy. Hence, we can say that in ancient times, even in Athens, the very crux of democratic ideas weren't followed. So I hope that answers your questions, and thank you for asking.
Thank you, Daffodil. Now the participants speaking against the motion, you may start.
Am I visible and audible?
Yes, so clearly visible and audible.
Okay.
Please.
So I'll speak, I'm slot 7, Sadhvi Chaturvedi, and I will speak against the motion that democracy is a westernized concept. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, everyone. Today I'll be speaking against the motion that democracy is a westernized concept. First of all, I would like to establish a definition of democracy which is not limited to universal franchise, equality, sovereignty, and fundamental rights. Democracy in essence is the autonomy to represent, and it's the autonomy to govern. Although the word democracy originated in 6th century Greece, the meaning of democracy is subjective, and its implications are also subjective to this day. As of 2020, only UAE, Oman, Brunei, Vatican City have claimed to be a non-democratic country. The rest, all the countries in the world claim to be democracies legally. Now, even if we believe that democracy was a democracy was a Western concept, why most advanced countries of the West are not democracies, I would like to raise this question to the panel. I'll tell you why. The principles of democracy already existed in the Eastern countries, where every concept was liberally debated. Tribal people had the autonomy to choose their leaders, and their heads were represented by native places in the whenever the king called the sabhas. Due to the course of history, we also read that so and so came and changed this position to hereditary, which implies that that position was officially had a system of appointment of officials. So during the course of colonization was a time when Eastern world lost the virtue of democracy. Otherwise, it has always been existed there. Hence, I would like to rest my case by stating the fact that democracy does not belong to the West. Democracy lies in the people and not in the Western side of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Sadhgi. Since there are no interjections on the floor, we may proceed with the next slot.
Thank you very much.
Next slot is slot number 8. Hriday Bharara and Anant Agarwal. Are you both present in the meeting?
Yes, we are here. Just give Hridya 10 seconds. She will be here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so the participant speaking for the motion, you may start.
Just a second. Am I visible?
No, you are not visible. Hriday.
1 minute. Yeah, am I visible now?
Visible now.
Okay. So first I'll mention my slot number, name and motion, and then I'll give you a count of 3, okay? Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Today I, Hriday Bharara, slot number 8, stand for the motion. The world does not need religion. 3, 2, 1. If I say there's an invisible man living in the sky who watches you throughout the day, that invisible man has a special list of 10 things he does not want you to do. And if you do those 10 things, he has a special place full of fire and anguish where he will send you and make you suffer, cry, and scream. In order to avoid being thrown into hell, that invisible man wants you to prove all your life that you are worthy of heaven. Will you believe me? Well, that's what religion forces you to believe. In my opinion, religion serves only one purpose. Either it makes a human helpless or a terrorist. Religion has historically been the primary cause of war and bloodshed. People fought holy wars in an attempt to spread their religion and faith around the world. They considered it to be their way of protecting religion. Religion has already screwed us up for a very long period of time, and now I believe that we'd be better off without it. As humans will be able to make progress at a much rapid rate, because religion is based on a fallacy that universe operates according to some supernatural rules and forces rather than scientific ones. Humans have a tendency to escape harsh realities of life through religion. Instead of facing reality, accepting it, and finding possible solutions, they please their deities to save them from troubles. Religion, my friends, is like a slow poison. And just as slow poison kills a human body, in the same way, religion kills a human soul. As a result, religion violence is on the rise in the world. People just don't tolerate religious ideologies different from the one that they follow, which in turn leads to discrimination, violence, terrorism, attacks, etc. It's just like a pair of shoes, you know. Find the one that fits you, but don't make me wear yours. Well, humans don't need religion to have morals. If they cannot determine between what is right and wrong, they lack empathy, not religion. Hence, I'm proud to propose this world does not need religion. What world needs is humanity. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Hriday. Slot number 6, you may ask your interjection.
Thank you. You mentioned in your speech that religion serves a singular purpose, only one purpose. Don't you think if you had to mention just one purpose, it could have been the fact that religion all over the globe unifies and solidifies people as a community and brings them together in this time of loneliness, and has been doing that for ages?
Thank you for your question. I believe that if religion would have brought us together, then I think bringing just one community together is not what religion means. Actually, bringing the world together is what religion means. If one community is at one side of the spectrum and other communities at the other side of the spectrum, it will eventually lead to some kind of disruptions or attacks or something like that. The timer wasn't on.
No problem. The participant speaking against the motion, you may start. Sahil, you can write your question in the chat box and the OC will address it from there.
Hi, can someone confirm from the OC if I am visible and perfectly audible or not?
Yes, you are. Please start.
So greeting members of the jury and esteemed opponents. This is Anant from slot 8. I will be going against the motion. This house believes that the world does not need religion. Let's start at the backward count from 3, guys. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. What is religion? Religion is a social institution involving beliefs and practices based on the conception of sacred or things that surpass the limits of our knowledge. Panel, faith in religion gives people the strength to cope with stressful events and provides them a ray of hope during dark times. It provides them with a model, ethical way of living. Religion provides a sanctuary to people with mental health issues. Scientists have found again and again that those with spiritual practice or religious beliefs tend to be happier than those who don't. Belief in an afterlife, something that nearly all mainstream religions have in common, can make you happier in this one, knowing that you're headed for something better. Religion encourages compassion, forgiveness, and gratitude. Historically, panel, religion has been instrumental in uniting people against oppression from time and again, be it the ancient Israelites in Pharaoh's Egypt or the revolt of 1857 in India. To this day, regiments of the Indian army evoke the name of gods in their battle cries. Religion also had a huge contribution in giving rise to rich cultures and empires, such as the Greek Empire or the Ottoman Empire, which led the way for the advancement of the whole human race. Think about it. Had these not have been there, we might have never have ever come to know about abstract geometry, the size of Earth, scientific reasons for ailments, zoology, optics, or even democracy. Panel, we need to also understand the effect religion has on our natural environment. According to a recent study conducted by Columbia University, nations whose inhabitants are less religious tend to use more resources and emit more emissions. The lowest level of energy use per capita, for instance, is observed among Hindu-dominated countries, while Christian and Buddhist countries have the lowest levels of water stress. In conclusion, panel, summing up my aforementioned points, I would say the importance of religion in one's life has not diminished, but only increased in today's fast-paced world. Its impact on us mentally, socially, and environmentally has made our lives better and paved a way for a betterment as a society.
Thank you, Anand. Slot number 7, you may ask your question.
Sir, you mentioned in your speech that religion unites people. How can you say that when in such a culturally diverse country such as India, we often face riots because of religious differentiation? How can you say that religion unites people?
Thank you for your question, Sadhvi. I think the main purpose of religion was to unite people, but some political leaders or people in power of position, portray religions so as to align with their views and try to create imbalances within the country by showing the religion in a bad light. So in that way, they try to malign the religion and try to achieve their own vendetta. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Hriday and Anand. Next slot is slot number 9, Amandeep and Lavnish Tharwal. Please acknowledge.
जी मैं यहाँ उपस्थित हूँ. क्या मैं पूर्ण रूप से दिखाई व सुनाई दे रहा हूँ?
Yes, you are clearly audible and clearly visible.
महोदय, सबसे पहले मैं अपना परिचय दूंगा, उसके बाद 1 2 3 के बाद आप टाइमर स्टार्ट कर देना।
Very well.
सदन में उपस्थित समस्त बुद्धिजीवियों को मेरा प्रणाम। मैं अमनदीप शर्मा, स्लॉट नंबर 9, दिए गए मोशन ए, यह सदन मानता है कि यह सदन बर्लिन वॉल की देयर इज सम नेटवर्क इशू। महोदय, क्या मैं अब दिखाई दे रहा हूँ, सुनाई दे रहा हूँ?
Yes, you are. Let me just check the timer.
सॉरी मैं महोदय, क्या आप पुनः टाइमर लगा देंगे? थोड़ा नेटवर्क इशू की वजह से वो हो गया था।
Okay, you can start again.
यह सदन बर्लिन वॉल का पुनर्निर्माण करेगा। महोदय, सन 1946 में विंस्टन चर्चिल का एक वाक्यांश आयरन कर्टन बड़ा प्रसिद्ध हुआ। आयरन कर्टन यानी कि अविश्वसनीयता, असहिष्णुता और तीव्र प्रतिद्वंदता। यह सब किसके बीच? पूर्वी यूरोप और पश्चिमी यूरोप के बीच में, जिनकी अगुवाई सोवियत संघ और अमेरिका कर रहे थे। यानी कि पूर्वी यूरोप और पश्चिमी यूरोप के बीच में एक लोहे का पर्दा आ गया था, जिसका प्रारूप हमको सन 1961 में बर्लिन वॉल के रूप में दिखाई दिया। महोदय, परंतु हम आज बर्लिन वॉल के निर्माण की बात क्यों कर रहे हैं? क्योंकि बर्लिन वॉल प्रतीक है उन घटनाओं का जो आज वर्तमान यूरोप में घट रही है। महोदय, मैं अपनी बात को 2 रूपों में स्पष्ट करना चाहूंगा। सबसे पहले तो रूस और अमेरिका की भू राजनीति। महोदय, किसी भी राष्ट्र के लिए उसकी सुरक्षा सबसे महत्वपूर्ण होती है, क्योंकि रूस की अधिकांश जनसंख्या मॉस्को और सेंट पीटरबर्ग के इर्द गिर्द रहती है, जो कि रूस को पूर्वी यूरोप से बिना किसी प्राकृतिक सीमाओं को जोड़ता है और उसको असुरक्षित करता है। शीत युद्ध के दौरान अधिकांश पूर्वी यूरोपीय देश सोवियत संघ का हिस्सा बने और उसके विघटन के बाद भी रूस ने उनके ऊपर अपनी पकड़ बनाए रखी। परंतु आज जब अमेरिका नाटो में यूक्रेन और बेलारूस को शामिल करने की बात करता है, तो इससे कहीं ना कहीं अमेरिका और रूस के बीच एक प्रतिद्वंदात्मक स्थिति बन गई है और पूर्वी और पश्चिमी यूरोप के बीच में एक प्रखर विभाजन दिखाई देता है। महोदय, इसके बाद मैं बताना चाहूंगा यूरोपीय संघ का विघटन। जिस यूरोपीय संघ ने शीत युद्ध के बाद पूर्वी यूरोप और पश्चिमी यूरोप को एकजुट करने का बेड़ा उठाया, आज इसी यूरोपीय संघ में ब्रिटेन के बाहर जाने के कारण, प्रवासी संकट के कारण, सभी देशों ने अपनी सीमाओं को बंद कर लेने के कारण पूर्वी और पश्चिमी यूरोप के जो समस्याएं हैं उनको सही ढंग से ना उठा पाने के कारण एक जो पतन का जो वो यूरोपीय संघ का पतन दिखाई दे रहा है और इससे पूर्वी और पश्चिमी यूरोप में एक अलग विभाजन दिखाई दे रहा है कि पूर्वी यूरोप अलग है, पश्चिमी यूरोप अलग है। महोदय, इन बिंदुओं से यह स्पष्ट होता है कि अमेरिका और रूस के बीच में एक नए शीत युद्ध प्रारंभ हो गया है और पूर्वी और पश्चिम यूरोप का विभाजन हो रहा है। और जैसा कि हेगल ने कहा है कि इतिहास अपने आप को दोहराता है और बर्लिन वॉल का पुनर्निर्माण होगा। धन्यवाद महोदय।
Slot number 25, you may ask your interjection.
मेरी आवाज सुनाई दे रही है?
जी, सुनाई दे रही है।
जी हाँ, मेरा प्रश्न है कि जब आप बर्लिन की दीवार का पुनर्निर्माण की बात करते हैं, तो जो बर्लिन में पहले से ही स्थिति खुशहाल है, तो बर्लिन वॉल की दीवार बनाने से वहां के लोगों के रोजगार नहीं जाएंगे? क्या वहां लोगों के सेंटिमेंट्स को हर्ट नहीं होगा? तो जो स्थिति खराब होगी तो उसका क्या होगा? तो दीवार बना के जो पहले से ही सब कुछ ठीक चल रहा है, तो उसका क्या होगा? मेरा सवाल यह है, जो स्थिति खराब होगी।
प्रश्न पूछने के लिए धन्यवाद महोदय। महोदय, मैं आपको बता देना चाहता हूं, यहाँ पर बर्लिन वॉल का मतलब बर्लिन में दीवार बनाने से नहीं है। बर्लिन वॉल एक प्रतीक है जो कि मतलब यूरोप को 2 हिस्सों में बांटता है। जैसा कि मैंने अपने वक्तव्य में कहा, पूर्वी यूरोप और पश्चिमी यूरोप, यानी कि यूक्रेन और बेलारूस के बीच में भी बर्लिन वॉल बन सकती है, जो कि यूरोप को 2 हिस्सों में बांट सकती है, पूर्वी यूरोप और पश्चिमी यूरोप। यहाँ पर बर्लिन वॉल का मतलब यह बिल्कुल नहीं है कि हम बर्लिन में बर्लिन वॉल बनाएंगे। बर्लिन वॉल का अर्थ है कि यूरोप को 2 हिस्सों में बांटना। महोदय, मैं समझता हूं कि आपको आपका प्रश्न का उत्तर मिल गया होगा।
Thank you, Amandeep.
धन्यवाद धन्यवाद।
Yeah. So the participant speaking against the motion, you may start.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible and visible.
Thank you. Slot number 9, मैं लवनीश धारवाल मोशन 1 के पूर्व और विपक्ष में अपना वक्तव्य प्रस्तुत करने जा रहा हूँ। 1 2 3 सदन की गरिमा को मेरा सादर नमन। सदन पटल पर रखा गया विषय ये सदन बर्लिन की दीवार का पुनर्निर्माण करेगा के पूर्व और विपक्ष में अपना वक्तव्य प्रस्तुत करने जा रहा हूँ। महोदय, हम गलती और अतीत से सीखते हैं, उसे दोहराते नहीं। आज के समय में कोई भी देश अपने अतीत में नहीं देखना चाहता और अतीत में खड़ा खुद को नहीं देखना चाहता। कोई भी देश बर्लिन की दीवार नहीं चाहता, जो कि एक देश दुनिया को बांटती है, दुनिया को अलग करके रख देती है, आर्थिक संकट पैदा करती है और नागरिकों को कैद में रखती है। महोदय, जैसा मेरे पक्ष के वक्ता बोलकर जाते हैं कि रशिया और यूएस के कारण आज बर्लिन की दीवार का पुनर्निर्माण होगा, तो परंतु ऐसा नहीं है महोदय। आज के परिवेश में यूएस और चाइना के बीच में शीत युद्ध की घटनाएं ज्यादा बढ़ती जा रही है। जिस प्रकार से भारतीय प्रशांतीय महासागर के अंदर चीन का बढ़ता प्रभाव रूस को यूएसए को तकलीफ दे रहा है, वे अपनी सैन्य शक्ति को वहां पे बढ़ाते जा रहा है और क्वाड की स्थापना के साथ हम देख सकते हैं कि शीत युद्ध किसके बीच में चल रहा है। रही बात महोदय यूरोपीय संघ के विभाजन की, तो महोदय आज के समय में किसी भी देश से एक सदस्य का बाहर जाना बड़े संघ का टूटना नहीं होता। यूरोपीय संघ एक मजबूत और एक बड़ा संगठन है जो कि अपने सभी देश के साथ में हित चाहता है और विकास चाहता है। महोदय, रही बात यूरोपीय संघ के टूटने की, तो ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है। यूरोपीय संघ के भीतर ओएसईसी एक सुरक्षा संघ है जिसके अंदर रशिया और यूएसए दोनों साथ मिलकर काम करते हैं। यूरोपीय संघ ग्लोबल गेटवे योजना पर काम करता है जो कि पूरे यूरोप को एकीकरण की ओर बढ़ाती है। जी महोदय, रही बात नाटो की कि जिस समय सोवियत यूनियन का बढ़ता प्रभाव देखकर नाटो बनाया गया था, परंतु जब यूएसएसआर जब खत्म हो जाता है तो उसके बाद में नाटो अपनी तरीका और अपनी लक्ष्य बदल देता है और आज नाटो अपने सभी सदस्य देशों के उत्थान और विकास की बात करता है। महोदय, वे सभी संधि देशों के साथ में आंतरिक और राजनीतिक समस्याओं का समाधान करने पर लगा हुआ है, जैसे कि उनके आतंकवादी समुदाय और अन्य किसी और देश। आज सभी देश मानवाधिकार की बात करते हैं और ये कोई भी नहीं चाहेगा कि वे अपने देश को विघटन करे या अपने देश को बांटे। इस प्रकार से कोई भी देश बर्लिन दीवार का सहायता नहीं करता। इसी के साथ मैं अपनी बात का समाप्त करना चाहूंगा। धन्यवाद महोदय।
Thank you, Lavnish. Since there are no interjections on the floor, we will move with the next participant. Next is slot number 10, Saval Gupta and Soumya Khatri. Please acknowledge.
Yes, we are here.
Yes, ma'am, we are here.
So the participant speaking for the motion, you may start. Participant speaking for the motion, are you present in the meeting?
I believe there is some disruption on Saval's end. Saval, is he there?
Yes, can you just give us 1 second, please?
Okay, sure.
All right, so I'll just start. I'll be seeing for the motion. So please start the timer in 3, 2, 1. So sustainable development is the path of the future that we all want. So let me tell you how economic development can solve the problem of climatic change. First of all, the total investment made by companies in getting a cleaner source of energy have been increasing by over 50% every single year since 1980. Not only this, every company nowadays wants to go green and reduce their carbon emissions fully. Not only this, the smartphones we use have been decreasing their energy consumption by 30% every single year. Also, EV and renewable sources of energy have promoted the lesser use of carbon emissions. And we are now trying to get fuels by using farm waste. Not only this, by regular use of ethanol in fuels, we can actually reduce the carbon emissions by 48% in 1 single year. Companies like Porsche have found out ways to be carbon neutral at the same time use proper fuels. So The real thing is that we are also reducing air pollution at the same time. So carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide have been reducing by 85, 80, and 60% every single year since 1980. Now, I get the fact that, first of all, economic development initially worsens the climatic conditions and at the same time provides climate externalities such as deforestation, air pollution, and accumulation of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. But the long-term effect of all these deforestation and air pollution can be reduced by economic development, because economic development promotes those people who are economically poor and boosts their income. So the wealthier the people get, the more they demand and the more they get cleaner and healthier environments by regulation of market framework and mechanisms that promote cleaner and less resource-intensive processes and technologies. So in my conclusion, I would just like to state that economic development has spread its wings and it's no time to back off or lower your economic development or demote your economic development. So in this case, economic development is the best way to promote a better and sustainable environment, at the same time reduce all sorts of climatic degradation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saval. Slot number 43, you may ask your question.
Yeah, so Saval, your words were very inspiring, but I have a question. You talked about all the facts, but I feel that these are only theoretical and not actually practical, because what we have seen today is that in most of the nations which are developing or developed nations, they have the most quantity of carbon emissions, and all the major amount of pollution is being spread by the countries like United States, China, and India. So don't you think that economic growth, as you say, is just rather a major resource of is a major source of all these pollutions that are being increasing day by day?
Okay, so thank you first of all for the question. I would like to answer it in this way. First of all, as you said, that most of the carbon emissions by countries like USA, China, and India, first of all these countries do not have a proper pollution management system. Even including USA and China. First of all, other countries use ethanol as a regular fuel rather than in India, USA, and China. They use proper fuel like 99 high octane. So if we use ethanol, we can reduce pollution by 48% in one single year. Not only this, at the same time, India uses 25% of renewable sources of energy, and it's been growing day by day. So when we start consuming all these renewable sources of energy and putting that in the electrical vehicles which we use, we can actually reduce the carbon emissions. At the same time, if no one uses all these things, we can use a personal solar panel at our places and reduce the carbon emissions at the same time by charging our electric vehicles to the energy producing them. Not only this, I would also tell you that all these countries have carbon emissions high, but at the same time, these are also very economically developed countries, but at the same time, these have been provisions of reducing all these carbon emissions. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Saval. Now the participant speaking against the motion, you may start.
Okay, just let me know when my camera is visible.
Yes, you're visible.
I'm visible?
Yes.
All right. So I'll begin with my introduction. My name is Soumya Khatri. Our slot number is 10. The motion is that economic growth is a solution towards climate change, and the side of my motion is against. So at the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Indeed, humans are not the invariable cause of climate change. Climate change is but a natural and a continuous process. It has happened even prior to our existence. It will continue even after. But what our growth pattern has done is that we have catalyzed this process. Our rate of extraction of resources is much higher compared to the rate of regeneration, which has pushed them into a state of depletion. Now, you take, for instance, the case of China. China is said to be the world's largest emitter of greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, and it has set up a target of 2060 to achieve carbon neutrality. It is taking up measures for it as well. But the impact of this decision was seen soon after the lockdowns were eased and the work continued as normal. Because they have put up a cap over the production of energy, but the demand of energy is very high, this deficit pushed various cities of China into a state of blackout for long hours and for a large number of days. Imagine what if the cap was removed and the work and the extraction would have been as normal. That would be depletion, no? Another problem with economic growth is first is implementation, second is ad hoc implementation, we know, but the ad hoc policies. Now, Minister in Andhra Pradesh came up with the idea of ZBNF, zero budget and natural farming. The operative words here are budget, zero, and natural. Now, even though this might seem to finance the stimulus and might trigger growth, but in reality, the outcomes have been miserable, because firstly, they've asked the farmers not to adopt the inorganic or organic methods, rather than completely depend upon the soil profile, of which our country does not lacks in various nutrients. So it has been a miserable condition for the farmers in down south. In the end, I would like to say that economic growth itself talks about the increase in the production of services and goods, whether they are backed up by renewable resources or backed up by non-renewable resources, does not remove the consistency of the word increment, which might even push pressure the resources and might push us into a black future like other cities. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Soumya. Since there are no interjections on the floor, let's move on to the next participant. Next slot is slot number 11, Ajaydeep Singh Thakur and Hina Bhupani. Are you both present in the meeting?
Yes, we are present.
Am I visible right now?
Yes, you are visible and audible. You may start.
So first, I would like to, before you start the timer, I would like to tell you that for the motion, and our motion is that nepotism is a pseudo privilege. My name is Ajaydeep Singh Thakur. So please start the counter at the count of 3. 1, 2, and 3. So nepotism is where a powerful person offers favor to their family in various different ways. The main question is nepotism a pseudo privilege? Let's talk about the status quo regarding nepotism in India. People related to celebrities or popular powerful people are being criticized and shamed for sharing in their family's legacy. Many people believe that these people are going to progress way ahead of others, but they ignore the fact that every person has their own individuality, caliber, and talent. This brings us to our first point. Expertise and talent still matter in order for someone to be successful. These people are given a platform and a chance to prove themselves, but how do they manage themselves after they are given that platform? It's their talent and caliber which pushes them forward and proves that they are deserving of the chance they were given. Let's take the Gandhi family, for example. Even after having strong familial ties into politics, they haven't been able to get a significant victory in politics. Their position has declined over time due to their nepotistic ways. But what about our present Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, who grabbed success with his strong grasp into politics, showing that caliber and talent still matter more? But what happens when you don't get success like he did, which is what my next point is all about, a legacy to protect and expectations to be fulfilled. Did you ever think the repercussions of the special attention that these people get? People tend to have unrealistic expectations from these people. And what happens when they fail to live up to those expectations? They're shamed and blamed. They're not allowed to live normal lives. Celeb kid gets harassed by paparazzis, or the heir to a successful business person gets shamed for the company's downfall. In the end, I would like to say that not everyone is as legendary as Amitabh Bachchan or as brilliant as Indira Gandhi. Do people even realize that the immense pressure they have trying to live up to everyone's standards, the constant fear of failure that they have? Do you still think that nepotism is an actual privilege? Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay.
Yep.
The interjection can be asked by slot number 6.
Okay.
Right. Hello. First of all, fine speech. So kudos for that. And my question is, with referring to your example about the Gandhi family and the Congress, do you not think that the main criticism and anger directed towards the Gandhi family has more to do with them not being able to live up to the expectations and not being able to live up to the expectations, yet still managing to hold on to their positions of leadership within the party and having significant amount of influence both within and outside the party? That is the main point of contention with regard to criticism of nepotism.
So can you just please repeat the question? I was very confused. So very sorry.
Right, no problem. Referring to your example about the Congress and the Gandhi family, do you not think that the criticism that is directed towards them has more to do with the fact that they are in positions of leadership and major influence, despite the fact that they are not able to live up to the expectations of the public and their legacy?
Okay, you have that was a really nice question. So please start the timer at the count of 3. 1, 2, and 3. So I don't really think that the criticism that they got was due to because they failed to live up to everyone's expectations, but it was more about their nepotistic ways, and that's why there are, if you have read the news, that they have a lot of struggle going between the party related to their nepotistic ways. And that's why back in 2000, in the 2000s, Mr. Manmohan Singh was chosen as the prime minister, because no one would agree to their nepotistic ways, and hence they saw Mr. Manmohan Singh as the more capable leader. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ajidi. Now the participant speaking against the motion, you may start.
Give me just a second. Can you tell me, am I visible and audible to you?
Yes, you are clearly visible and audible.
So I would first like to introduce, my name is Hina, and I am speaking against for the motion C that says nepotism is a pseudo privilege. I would first like to give rebuttals, and then my speech would be followed by my constructives. So start the counter in 1, 2, and 3. Panel, I strongly disagree with the motion. I don't think my former speaker has completely understood the impacts and the depths of nepotism. I would like to throw light on the current scenario of nepotism, that is the impacts of nepotism. In status quo, because of the existence of nepotism, people are getting career supports and benefits in their career paths, especially the star kids today. As mentioned by my former speaker, that star kids are getting career paths. So let me remind you that as mentioned by my former speaker, he said that star kids have talent and caliber. So let me remind you that talent and caliber also needs a kickstart and a stage. As we can see in today's scenario, the outsiders are struggling in their career, and they are getting ignored, and their talent has been given no value. Following my constructives here, the existence of nepotism is hindering the growth for those who are lucky and undeserving, also for those who doesn't even get a chance to showcase their talent, which are basically the unlucky and deserving one. Nepotism is a cherry on top of a cake for those who thinks that hard work is not their piece of cake. Nepotism not only exists in intra-field, it also has its roots on interfield. Let us assume a situation where X's father is the chief minister of Maharashtra. That would be much easier for X to get into film industry. If we talk about intra-field, nepotism's existence in the same professions, let's say in business, in status quo of India, in business, the CEO of company would rather be the king of the owner, be it son, daughter, etc., which strongly suggests that the existence of nepotism in current scenario. Therefore, I would like to conclude my speech by saying that it is not so that nepotism is invisible or fake, but the thing required is to see it with a clear vision and instances which I have mentioned. Very, very proud to speak against for the motion. Thank you so much.
Slot number 14, you may ask your question.
Hello, am I completely audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah, so first of all, well spoken. But don't you think that you talked about star kids, right? So don't you think they have a burden of actually proving their dad's work or their mother's work, and they are actually expected to be as good as them? Don't you think they have a burden on themselves?
Thank you so much for the question, Sujata. So start the timer in 1, 2, and 3. So I don't think that they have a burden of proving themselves, because talent is enough for proving themselves. If they have talent in another field, then that it is not needed to prove themselves in their dad's field. As I've mentioned, that nepotism also follows in intra-field and interfield. So yeah, their talent matters, but the pressure is not from the audience. The pressure is itself from their parents, which is basic roots of nepotism. I guess this answers your question. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ajadi and Hina. Our
Thank
next
you.
participants are Shreya Kumari and Maheen Faisal. The participants speaking for the motion, you may start.
All right. Hi, this is Shreya, slot number 12. I'll be speaking for the motion on the topic. This House believes that eviction of Palestinians in Jerusalem was regretful. I'll be starting on the count of 3, 2, 1. On the auspicious day of Ramadan, where young and old would come together, strolling through the city. And how can I forget? It's also a special occasion for Israelis to harass Palestinians and spoil their festival. To those of us who saw snippets of Palestinians attacking the police, well, it's time that we unravel the full picture here, where Israeli police knowingly set up barricades on the day of 12th of April to provocate an anticipated reaction from the side of Palestinians and then use it as a strategic tool to depopulate and displace the entire population. To understand why it is unequivocally regretful, I'll be presenting two arguments here. Firstly, understanding the history of Israel and Palestinian conflict, where the communal violence between Jews and Arabs began spiraling out of control after the movement of Jews in 1948 in British Palestine. That was followed by the international ratification of dividing the country in two independent nations, which was never followed and accepted by Jews. They started invading the entire territory except for two regions, namely West Bank and Gaza. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is their ulterior motive, to further invade West Bank and Gaza. Whatever happened in Jerusalem is just a reflection of that. And therefore, what happened in Jerusalem is deeply painful and regretful because it puts 1 lakh Palestinians at the risk of forced depopulation and displacement from the lines of West Bank and Gaza, which, according to the UN Resolution 194, belongs to them as well. Secondly, for my worthy opponents who are trying to justify the depopulation of Palestinians, stating that how it's extremely difficult for Jews and Palestinians to live together, my question to them would be, has the government of Jerusalem, the executive body, judiciary ever tried to do that? On one hand, Israelis are allowed to cast vote 4 times in an year for the past 2 years and elect the same Israeli extremists who would chant death to Arabs on the streets, where on the other hand, Palestinians who even dare to conduct or contest elections were punished, detained, and oppressed. In conclusion, I would like to say that in the light of gross violation of human rights, political rights, and also violation of International Code of Compliance, this should be condemned as regretful by all the members of this House. Thank you.
Slot number 20, you may ask your interjection.
Madam Speaker, you have talked about violence on Israel's part. I would like to know your views about terrorist attacks caused by Hamas.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. When I condemn this very act as regretful, whatever the Palestinians were subjected to with regards to the oppression, I do not at all mean that whatever has happened to Jews, I deem it as justified. It has happened back and forth, and whatever has happened has regretful on the side of Jews, on the side of Palestinians. But if at all there are security reasons from the side of terrorist groups, including Hamas, as you rightly talked about, then that should be dealt in a graded and structured manner. But Israel, they feel entitled to oppress those Arabs and Palestinians because of the estranged history that they share. If at all there are security reasons, that should be dealt with in a graded and structured manner by identifying such people whose conduct is prejudicial to the security and sovereignty of the nation, and then punishing them, not generalizing it across the entire population or the entire community of Palestine. That is gross violation of human rights, right? Hope it answers your question, ma'am. Thank you.
Hi, sorry to interrupt. The one who asked question, slot number 20, can you please repeat your question and your name?
Sure, ma'am. My name is Nesimulti. I'm from slot 20, and I asked that Madam Speaker mentioned in her speech about the violence on Israel's part. I like to know, I wanted to know her views on terrorist attacks caused by Hamas. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
The participant speaking against the motion, you may start.
Yeah, just before you start my timer, I hope I'm clearly audible and visible.
Yes, you are clearly audible and clearly visible.
All right. Jury members, my name is Maheen Faisal. I am slot 12 and I'll be speaking against the motion on the topic. This House believes eviction of Palestinians, families in East Jerusalem was regretful. You can start my timer on the count of 3, 2, 1. Respected jury members, while my opponents are providing all the reasons that might seem highly emotional pertaining to the current circumstances, I would like to ask the audience today, how many of you are actually aware about the history of Jerusalem? Are you aware how the modern day Israel was originally the home of Jews thousands of years ago? How the Babylonians killed the Jews right in their homeland and expelled them? Are you all aware how the Islamic Caliphate targeted and killed every Jewish tribe in the region of modern day Syria and Israel? Wait, weren't we talking about the Palestinian expulsion from East Jerusalem? Or that is what the House believes? Then, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to put forth the 73 counts of banishment that the Jews have faced from nearly every part of the known world, starting from 733 before Common Era to the Yemeni civil war that even carries on till date. Honorable panel, we are in the country of India, right? Some of us are Hindus, some are Muslims, Jain, Buddhists, etc. Now, Hindus visit religious sites across the country from Kedarnath to the Sabrimala, and Muslims visit the Makkah and the Medina, and for the Buddhists, it's Bodh Gaya, right? Now, ladies and gentlemen, Varanasi is considered highly significant for the Hindus, and being a Hindu, would you be fine with a foreign religion taking over Varanasi, violating the sanctity of the temples? Or do you think any Muslim across the world would be fine with the takeover of Makkah or Medina? You already know the answer, don't you? So, ladies and gentlemen, if none of the aforementioned groups of people would be fine with their holy cities being taken over by foreigners, then why should we make an exception for the Jews and subject their holy city, a city that is at the core of their faith, be occupied by historic invaders going by the name of Palestinians, who had originally slaughtered and expelled the Jews from their motherland surely on the lines of religion. With this, I very proudly conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Maheen. Slot number 43, you may ask your question.
Yeah, thanks, ma'am. So Maheen, you talked about, first of all, I believe that, both the members of this slot 12 have been, there has been a series of emotional blackmails. In the first one, the first speaker talked about the difficulties that the Arabs face, and you talked about the difficulties that the Jews face. But what the major point is that, and you also told that, Jerusalem is the home to all the Jews. But I would like to suggest one more thing, that in Jerusalem, there's a place called Al-Aqsa. That is one of the major, major place for worship for the Arabs. So first of all, that is a question, that it is a city to both of them. Further, I would also like to say that, as you said, that it has been Jews always who have been have faced the harsh realities of the world. But the series of killings that have been have been burdened on Palestine by the Israel have have created a very negative impact on the humanitarian basis. So what are your views on this?
Thank you so much for your wonderful question, sir. Sir, let's not forget that a coin has two sides, right? Sir, I want to ask you, if you are the owner of your property and someone else is squatting on your property, wouldn't you have the right to remove them from your property? Of course you would, right? Sir, it's important for us to draw a very firm distinction that exists between the policies of Israel as a state and the Jewish people. So if the House believes that the victims in this situation, as we are discussing upon, are the Palestinians, then it is my ardent opinion that the Jews were the original Palestinians, because they were not only banished from Jerusalem, but from every kingdom and every country that they may have called their home. So the Israelis that are being villainized by the House today are the real Palestinians, the Palestinians that are suffering at the hands of anti-Semitism. So lastly, I most certainly believe that the Jewish people have an eternal historical right to the land of Israel, the land of their ancestors. And this is something which I believe is highly, highly indisputable. With this, I rest my case. Thank you, sir. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Shreya and Maheen. Next, we have slot number 13, Mishali Bansal and Arya Mishra. The members speaking for the motion may take the stage.
Am I visible and audible?
Yes, you're visible as well as audible. All the best.
Thank you so much. I'll begin then. Good afternoon, jury members, my seniors, and my dear friends. Today, I, Arya Mishra of slot number 13, am going to speak for the motion E, that is, change is not progress. All change is not progress, just as all movement is not forward. By this statement, Ellen Glasgow very subtly explains the fine line that distinguishes change from progress. I'm sure you've all heard about Nazism and how Adolf Hitler became the Führer. But do you know that there was democracy in Germany before that? Here, it's interesting to note that there was a complete change in governance, but the Holocaust gives us goosebumps enough to know that it was much farther from progress. Now, let's look at a change in the life of common people. In Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, Anna leaves aside her marriage and lives with a cavalry officer called Vronsky. Initially, changed is draped in a progressive attire because she gets the love and happiness of a relationship which she couldn't get with her husband, who was 20 years older than her. However, this changed her image from a virtuous woman of high society to a woman with low ideals. This pressure, along with the tension between her and her new fiance, Vronsky, led to ultimately killing her own self, bringing misery to all. So it's evident that change is not always progressive. It might be negative too. By the way, why are we debating online when the stage awaits us? Well, who isn't affected by the change COVID-19 brought to our lives? With the offices turned from work from home, theaters to OTT, and so many more, our lives were drastically changed. So, friends, we must realize that every change is not progress. Only positive change is a step towards progress. Thank you.
Slot number 12, you may ask your interjection.
Thank you for the recognition, ma'am. Ma'am, a wonderful speech. However, I'm very intrigued to ask that if change does not equate to progress, can you elaborate why? Because for centuries now, people have been using the word change to denote something better than the current state, better than something that already exists, or as the house you want to call it, progress. Thank you so much.
Yeah, your question is absolutely valid because it is very tricky to understand the fine boundary that differentiates change from progress. Actually, what I want to make it clear here is that change can both be positive as well as negative, as I elaborated in my speech earlier. But change can either lead to regress or progress. Here, we are only talking about the link between change and progress. So, though the word has been used interchangeably in the times lately also and from the past also, but it's very crucial to understand the difference between change and progress. So I'm sure I've made this point clear, and the interjector doesn't have any second thoughts in mind now. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
The member speaking against the motion may start now.
Yes, I'm start. Am I visible?
Yes, you're visible as well as audible. All the best.
Thank you. So starting with the introduction, myself, Mishali, my slot number is 13. I'm standing against the motion that change is not progress. So you can start the timer. 3, 2, 1. I want you to put a little stress on your mind and think, what does progress actually mean? Progress, my dear friends, really means to move forward towards a destination. So how is it even possible without change? According to our mind's conditioning, we always welcome progress but resist change. We tend to become so much comfortable in our current situation that we try to just stay there and think this is it. But believe me, becoming stagnant is the worst step you can take for yourself. All of you must have heard that famous phrase from Charles Darwin's book, which states survival of the fittest. It really means that it is not the most strongest of the species, not the most intelligent ones will survive. It is the one who are responsive to change. Let me take an example from which all of you can relate to. Suppose you are not feeling so healthy and energetic. So in order to improve your lifestyle, you need to change your diet in order to pave a way for your physical progress. You can't keep on eating the same way and expect to wake up healthy one day. You need to change yourself in order to be positive. Okay, so even in tech field, whether it comes to working on a startup or solving a complex problem, it all requires change. Now, some people will say, if we keep on changing, it will lead to nowhere. So to them, my answer is, our purpose or our main idea should be clear behind the thing we are doing, but our way should be flexible. If you're finished changing, you are finished. It means that you have willingly agreed that there is no room for your progress. Who wants to live this way? Nobody. So it is high time that we should drop down our fears associated with changing and try to be more open to new opportunities. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Slot number 37, may I ask an interjection?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. I would like to ask the speaker that where do you stand on improvement? Like you said that change without change, progress is not possible. Well, change and improvement are different, right? So where do you stand on improvement?
Okay, so thank you, sir, for your question. I stand on improvement. I see improvement as improvement is something which you make while changing yourself, right? Like if you're doing something by better by like 2%, then the next day, if you're only improving 1%, like you are changing yourself, you are just doing it better by adapting some new techniques or by adapting some new ideas or new skills. So you're just slightly changing yourself and improving yourself. So they are bit of parallel in my opinion. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Arya and Mishali. Next up, we have slot number 14, Ojasvi Gupta and Sujata Sharda. The member speaking for the motion may start speaking.
Yeah, before my timer starts, very good afternoon to respected judges and to the entire August gathering. This is Ojasvi Gupta, slot number 14, and I would be speaking in favor of the motion. The philosophy of wantlessness is utopian, while materialism is a chimera. So, respected OCs, kindly start my timer in 3, 2, 1. Aim for the moon so that at least if you fall, you might fall amongst the stars. So how many of us have a proper plan layout for our future? Some have, some don't. Well, I happen to come in the latter category. But what remains constant with all of us is a will, a want, a desire, and an ambition that we've all dreamt for ourselves. But that doesn't mean that we turn out to be the virus of three idiots always clamoring for success or being a part of the rat race. So is wanting, desiring, or earning for something by our selfless nature right? Or is it an hindrance to us practicing altruism? Or as my worthy opponent mentioned, a defection to what Gandhi or Buddha preached? Well, even a sannyasi by practice has some wants for the people around him, for nature, or for a supernatural being. Practicing complete detachment or complete wantlessness is neither desirable nor possible utopia, as we may term. So does this mean that all our whims and fantasies be provided for? Didn't Surdas and Tulsidas mention about how destructible it can be if all our desires for materialism are provided for? IIT, IIM aims. God, you must be minting some good money. I can see a beautiful bungalow, sea-facing bungalow, beautiful wife waiting for you. So is this running after material? Well, it can be, provided you decide to do BTech when your true passion resides in journalism, or you run after a six-figure corporate salary when you know you want to pursue photography. So here comes $1 million statement. Both wantlessness and materialism are two extreme poles, and both of them can never be achieved alone. And as they rightly say, happiness is not a matter of intensity, but of choice, rhythm, and harmony. Harmony between wantlessness and materialism. Thank you so much.
There are no interjections in the chat box, so we'll move on to the speaker that will be speaking against the motion.
Okay, ma'am.
Hi, am I completely, hi. Am
No,
I completely audible and visible?
You're audible, but you're not visible.
Okay, okay, just a second. Wait.
Yeah.
Am I visible now?
Yes, you're visible as well as audible. All the best.
Hi everyone, this is Sujata Sharda, and today I'm going against the motion, that is the theory of wantlessness is utopian, while materialism is a chimera. So please start my timer. This topic might be a little difficult to understand, but let me simplify it. Wantlessness is actually a state in which there is absolutely no desires. Now, this might sound a little vague, right? A person with no desires, is it even a real thing? Yes, it is. Self-control and willpower can make an individual free of desires. Here, I am not denying the fact that the satisfaction of needs is completely eliminated, but at some level it is controlled. Okay, now let's take an example. Example here is Vivekananda. Everybody knows him. Vivekananda always said that when there is desire, no real happiness can come from it. He meant that only the contemplative can bring us real happiness. Wantlessness is a very complex wantlessness is a very complex state, but it is not utopian. That is completely unachievable. It is ideal, but not achievable in the practical form. Now let us jump to the other topic, that is materialism is chimera. Materialism is an ideology or practice that actually focuses on matter. Now here we need things to live, right? Materialism is not always bad, and to say that it is a chimera will not be right, because in the world we need materials or tangible things. Let's be honest, we need a bed to sleep and a chair to sit. Having a life without materialism is impossible. Let's be a little practical. Everyone in this world wants to earn more and more. Like if I am 50,000, I need a lakh, right? For my family, for my family to live a better life. So materialism is not impossible to achieve. Thank you.
Slot number 30, you may ask your interjection.
Okay, so am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, okay. So you stated that wantlessness is achieved. Don't you think that not wanting anything is a want in itself?
Not wanting anything is a want in itself, yes. But I also stated that the satisfaction of needs, like this can be a need that I don't want anything, right? It is not completely eliminated, but at some level it is controlled. Like for example, you might have want that I really don't want to have junk food in my life. Now that is a want, but not having junk food is a satisfaction that you need to be controlled. Okay, so that is my point.
Thank you, Jasvi and Sujata. Now we have slot number 15.
Yeah, extremely sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to confirm that since no interjections were placed forward during my slot, so would it result in any omission of my marks in the interjection round?
You'll get foot marks for the interjection.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have slot number 15, Kanika Tripat and Ananya Banerjee. The person speaking for the motion may take the stage.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible as well as visible. All the best.
Just a correction. Actually, the spelling of my surname is Tripathi with an I at the end.
Okay, sure. Yeah. We'll do that. Thank you.
Okay. So just an introduction before I start my speech. I'm Kanika, slot number 15. Speaking for the motion, the House believes that democracy is a Western concept. You may start the timer in 3, 2, 1. Of the people, by the people, for the people. One concept, democracy. A widely understood and implemented concept. But has the concept been omnipresent since the very beginning? Ladies and gentlemen, to answer this very question, let's take back to the time of its origin, which says that the word democracy is Greek in origin and that it is associated with the efforts of the ancient Greeks, who the 18th century intellectuals considered the founders of Western civilization. Continuing with this, in many Western societies, democracy was established as a result of a series of revolutions, such as the American Civil War and the French Revolution. This independence is a historical fact in those societies, which are now established as democracies, and following the implementation in the West, a lot of other countries across the globe have implemented it, and the rest is history. In fact, India, the world's largest democracy, has a lot of concepts in its constitution which have been borrowed from other countries. India borrowed many parts from the functioning of the USA, like in the democracy, like functions of president and vice president, the judicial review, the fundamental rights, which has helped India to thrive as the largest democracy in the world. And ladies and gentlemen, borrowing can only happen when there exists an origination somewhere else. And having clearly stated the facts above regarding the clear origination of democracy in the West, I strongly believe that democracy is definitely a Western concept. Thank you.
Slot number 10, you may ask your interjection.
Okay, so I have a question. Since you said that a lot of things in Indian democracy were taken from Western world, so let me tell you one thing. The principle of democracy was originated in the Vedas, and the words like Sabha and Samiti were ones who were mentioned in both Rig Veda and Atharva Veda. And in such meetings, any such meetings, a decision was made after discussion with king and ministers and scholars at that time. So how can you say that the democracy is a purely Western concept?
Actually, your voice was a bit low. Can you please repeat your question? I could just understand a bit of it. Can you please repeat it?
So am I audible now?
Yeah, a little better.
Okay, fine. So since you said that a lot of things were in India, Indian democracies were taken from Western world. So let me tell you, the principle of democracy was actually originated from the Vedas. The words like Sabha and Samiti are mentioned in both Rig Veda and Atharva Veda. And in any such meetings, a decision was taken by discussion with king, ministers, and scholars. So how can you say that the democracy is a purely Western concept?
Okay, sir, thank you for your question. So as I mentioned in my speech that, India has borrowed a lot of concepts of its constitution from the other countries. And as you're talking about the Rig Veda and Samaveda, which were, as you said, that, were in discussion with the kings as well. So at that time, that was complete monarchy or oligarchy, as I can say. It was not complete democracy. When complete democracy came into picture, it was only a Western concept which was borrowed from the USA, and these are the like fundamental rights, the judicial review, and all of these concepts were borrowed from the West. The time you're talking about, it was not a complete democracy at that time, as you mentioned in your speech as well, that they were in discussion with the kings. So I hope this answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you.
The person speaking against the motion may start their speech.
Before starting, if anyone can confirm, am I clearly audible and visible?
Yes, you're audible and visible. All the best.
Okay, so a brief introduction. I am Ananya Banerjee, slot 15, and I will be going against the motion on the topic, the House believes that democracy is a Western concept. I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to take you all back to the era where democracy evolved in the womb of Vedic culture. Vedic scriptures of Rigveda, Atharvaveda had made democratic principles and its ideals a deity and called it Sangnyanam, which means the collective consciousness of the people. Even the ruler was not absolute. This proves how democracy existed that time, because people together used to settle the decisions of the Sabha and Samiti with great vision and mutual consultation. Hence, I strongly disagree that democracy is a Western concept. Ladies and gentlemen, Nelson Mandela established South Africa's democracy, insisting that human rights will be the light that guides our nation. At the heart of the transition to democracy was a model of overcoming injustice and improving the public services. Hence, I strongly disagree that democracy is a Western concept, because acceptance of democracy in South Africa can be seen as a complex internal process towards democracy. Respectful jury, is democracy only about elected representatives? Is democracy only about majoritarianism? Is democracy only about politics? A big, big no, ladies and gentlemen. Democracy is intimately connected with public discussion and interactive reasoning. And these traditions of public discussion existed across the globe and not just in the West. Honorable Chair, the experience of democratic transition in India, South Africa, Chile, Japan, South Korea proves that democracy is not a Western ideology, rather it is a universal values. The countries around the globe have aspects of democratic culture to some degree, and every country has the room to strengthen their quality of democracy. Therefore, I strongly oppose that democracy is a Western concept. Think about it. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Slot number 43, you may ask your interjection.
Yeah, thank you. I guess we all agree that we learn from the things we see. Okay, there have been Vedas in which we have talked about some basic concepts of let's say democracy. But what happens is that we can't just say that India is the major hub that talked about democracy first. First of all, at that time we were still those people who were struggling among the branches of social evils like the sati system, the parda system, where women were not given any representation. It was just the Britishers or the Western culture that motivated us Indians to develop and have a democracy in our state. So what are your views on that? In India might have written about it first, but obviously we learned about it in a major extent from the Western culture.
Thank you so much for your question. First of all, I think you are a bit confused with the timeline of the Rig Veda and the Atharva that I was talking about. Mentioning the thing that you have mentioned, that it mentioned some basic principles of democracy. Sir, it didn't mention some basic principles of democracy. It mentioned freedom of speech, equality, fraternity, active participation of citizens. And it was present in the written scriptures, which mentioned the word republic 40 times in Rig Veda and 16 times in Atharva Veda. Also, you mentioned about the plight of women. So I would like to correct you that there were great women at that time who participated in the political meetings as well. We have a number of examples stating two of them. We have Maitreyi, we have Gargi, who were so much into politics, and they established all these things. And this wasn't present in after the independence. It was present in our culture, in our religion from past many years and from centuries. So I believe that your concept of democracy is a bit flattered. So I hope that answers your question. And obviously Vedic culture was there, and democracy established at that point only. Thank you.
Thank you, Kanika and Ananya. Next, we have slot number 16, Harshita Singh and Chandni Arora. The person speaking for the motion may take the stage now.
Greetings, panel. This is Chandni, slot number 16, speaking. That is motion H. This house believes that the world does not need religion. I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. On a very first day, a child is born. He or she is labeled as whether it's a boy or a girl because of very obvious reasons. But within the country, the child is also labeled with another tag of religion. Almost all religions around the world have certain rules and principles that hold love, peace, and order. Many people misinterpret the sacred texts like the Bible, the Quran, or even Dharma Shastras for that matter as per their own convenience. For example, most people, when they do not want their reputation to degrade, they lie. But what about the religion that teaches them not to lie? Where did the authenticity or the actual teaching of their religion disappear? Because here, people console them with the most popular saying that rules are meant to be broken. I believe that the concept of secularism is taken for granted by the citizens because it allows everyone to practice whatever religion they want to practice, but it does not in any way promote forceful imposition of religion on others. Neither does it promote destruction in the name of religion, which is actually done. Almost all religious texts promote love, right? Then why is it that interfaith marriages are criticized in a country, that too in the name of religion? Is not this ironical? Connecting the dots and talking about the innocent lives of animals who probably would not even have an idea as to what exactly religion is, are sacrificed in the name of religion. I really do not think that animal sacrificing should be glorified in the name of religion. And then there are those who use their religion as a license to create civil unrest. How many innocent people have died in the name of religion? To conclude, I would like to highlight that the world does not need religion because religion is the main cause of civil wars, hatred, and conflict. Religion is killing your humanitarian soul because where knowledge ends, religion begins. Thank you.
Slot number 40, you may ask your interjection.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So actually, I want to ask that how can you relate the misguidance or misinterpretations done by the religious zealots or the fanatics, religious fanatics, and discard the whole institution of religion according to them? I mean, it's their misguidance for their vested interest. No, and you cannot discard the whole religion institution for that. What's your take on that?
I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. So to answer your question, I mentioned it in my speech that all religious, all sacred texts, the Bible, the Quran, or even Dharma Shastras for that matter, the misinterpretation of them is on the behalf of people as to how they take it, the perspectives. But I personally believe that the religious institutions and the guidance that is provided in the sacred text is to be, detailedly explained and not exactly left on the people as to how they take it. So I believe that this answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am.
The member speaking against the motion may take the stage now.
Am I loud and clear?
Yes, you're audible as well as visible. All the best.
Hi, it's Harshita Singh. Greetings to everyone present in the meeting. My slot is number 16. My motion is that this house believes that the world does not need religion. My stance is in the opposition of the motion, and I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. There's a golden rule in life. Treat your neighbor as you want them to treat you. That's one of my religion's teachings, and only religion holds people accountable to that. The biggest reason that society needs religion is to regulate behavior. Religion is what makes many people take an extra step to be better people for themselves and others around them. Religion gives people something to believe in, provides a sense to connect with people over similar beliefs. These packets can have a positive impact on mental health, like more self-esteem, being optimistic, giving belief and hope. It further creates a sense of belonging to a group and further offers trustworthy and safe social engagement. Religion helps people to cope with difficult life situations. For example, a ceremony for a loss of loved one. When you've lost a loved one, religion proves a therapeutic framework of rituals and beliefs that produce oxytocin, dopamine, and other positive effects that can help with coping and surviving of an individual. Religion also helps in repairing damage caused by alcoholism, drug addiction, and marital breakdown. Religious beliefs and practice are major source of strength and recovery. It also provides structure and regularity in an individual's life. It provides guidelines to live by. That is, importance of doing the right thing. Religious beliefs and practices contribute substantially to the formation of personal moral criteria and sound moral judgment. It teaches compassion, forgiveness, and gratitude. In the end, I would like to conclude by saying that respecting religion is a need of ours. We need a more clear-eyed appreciation of the role of religion in our lives. Religion is one of the most powerful cultural responses to the universal emotional life that connects us all together. Thank you.
Slot number 24, you may ask your interjection.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
All right. So, madam, you said in your debate that religion teaches moral behavior. So what if there is no religion? There are no religious rules you are bound with. So what sort of crimes you would commit? I would like to ask you. Would you commit murder, or would you steal something? Or would you just continue to live your life as you do today and yesterday?
I'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. First of all, thank you for your question. And I would like to answer by saying that, see, when we are talking about religion here, religious teachings do give us some sense of moral value, right? Like what's the right thing, what's the wrong thing, right? So if we are not giving that teachings to someone around us, how will we get the sense of moral judgment? How will we get to know that something is right or wrong? So if I'm not taught what's my right or wrong, obviously I will think stealing, murdering, killing somebody is normal, it's fine, because my brain would not know moral judgment. Are you getting my point? So construction of ego is when you teach somebody moral judgment. So when there is no ego, our brain is going to, think everything as right, because that's how we perceive it. So religion teaches us moral values here, and it would also, help us make right judgments and have a basic sense of what's right and wrong and what's moral. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Harshita and Chandni. Up next, we have slot number 17, Jai Bairagi and Yashaswini. The members speaking for the motion, we take the virtual stage.
Right. क्या मैं आप लोगों को दिखाई और सुनाई दे रही हूँ?
Yes, you're audible as well as visible. All the best.
Thank you. तो सबसे पहले नमस्कार, मेरा नाम यशस्विनी है, स्लॉट नंबर 17, और मैं दिए गए विषय कि यह सदन बर्लिन की दीवार का पुनर्निर्माण करेगा के पक्ष में अपना वक्तव्य प्रस्तुत करूंगी। 3, 2, 1 पर मेरा टाइमर शुरू कर दीजिए। 3, 2, 1। महोदय, सर्वप्रथम हमें समझने की आवश्यकता है कि जब हम पुनर्निर्माण की बात करते हैं तब हम हमारे इतिहास को दोबारा से उजागर करने की बात करते हैं। ये राष्ट्रीय इतिहास के स्मारक की बात हो जाती है, और एक राष्ट्र की जब आप इकाई समझते हैं तो वो एक नागरिक होता है। तो किस प्रकार ये पुनर्निर्माण उस राष्ट्र और नागरिक का सामंजस्य बिठाएगा, उसको हम समझने का प्रयास करेंगे। महोदय, सर्वप्रथम कैसे ये पुनर्निर्माण हमारे हित का काम करेगा, तो ये एक सूचक का कार्य करेगा। सूचक पहला कि किस प्रकार इतिहास में जो नागरिकों पर पतन हुआ था वह लोकतंत्र की आत्मा के साथ खिलवाड़ थी, और जब लोकतंत्र की आत्मा के साथ खिलवाड़ हुई तो लोगों ने जन सहयोग किया, और उस जन सहयोग से जनतंत्र का निर्माण हुआ, और वह जनतंत्र उस नेतृत्व के आड़े आ गया जो उस लोकतंत्र के साथ खिलवाड़ कर रहा था। महोदय, दूसरे मुख्य बिंदु की ये न केवल राष्ट्रीय व वैश्विक स्तर पर एक स्मारक बनेगा कि किस प्रकार हर एक देश को विकास की आवश्यकता होती है, या हर एक स्थान को विकास की आवश्यकता होती है, और जब नागरिकों को विकास नहीं मिलता है या नागरिकों को वो उत्थान नहीं मिलता है, तो वो नागरिक तो किस प्रकार उस नेतृत्व का खंडन करते हुए नागरिक आगे बढ़ता है और पलायन करता है। तो ये एक ऐसा सूचक बनेगा कि एक देश में विकास और नागरिकों की जो शक्ति है उसकी बात करेगा। उसके बाद महोदय, किस प्रकार ऐतिहासिक मान्यता रखता है कि जो व्यक्ति विशेष यहाँ पर रह रहे हैं उनको ये पता होना चाहिए कि उनका इतिहास क्या था, और किस प्रकार वो 2 भिन्न विचारधाराओं के समावेशन से आज जीवित है। जिन विचार तो ये प्रेरणा का कार्य करेगा उन लोगों के लिए जो आज या इस स्थान पर रह रहे हैं। दूसरी मुख्य बिंदु महोदय, अर्थव्यवस्था में सहायक होगा क्योंकि पर्यटक का काम करेगा। जब भी हम कोई ऐतिहासिक स्मारक बनाते हैं तो स्मारक से जुड़ी होती है कहानियां, उन कहानियों को उजागर करेगा, किस प्रकार वहां के लोगों के जो पतन और पीड़ा थी उस पतन को उजागर करेगा, और पूरे विश्व को ये संदेश देगा किस प्रकार नागरिकों को अपने हक की लड़ाई लड़नी चाहिए, और जो अंत होता है वो अच्छा होता है। तो ये युगों तक एक ऐतिहासिक स्मारक का कार्य करेगा और पीढ़ियों को याद दिलाएगा किस प्रकार ये जो एकीकरण है वो हुआ था। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। प्रश्न आमंत्रित है।
As there are no interjections in the chat box, you'll get full marks for your interjection. Now I request the member speaking against the motion to start.
नमस्कार, क्या मैं स्पष्ट रूप से सुनाई व दिखाई दे रहा हूँ?
Yes, you're both audible and visible. All the best.
जी, पहले मैं अपना परिचय दे दूं। मैं जय बैरागी। आज सदन पटल पे रखे गए विषय, क्या यह सदन दोबारा बर्लिन की दीवार का निर्माण करेगा, कि विपक्ष में अपना वक्तव्य रखूंगा। मेरे 3, 2, 1 पर आप टाइमर शुरू कर सकते हैं। 3, 2, 1। नमस्कार महोदय, मेरे विपक्षी वक्ता हैं आप। मेरी विपक्षी व मेरी प्रतिपक्षी वक्ता आपके सामने कुछ तर्क रखकर जाती है। महोदय, मैं उनके तर्कों को बिल्कुल निरर्थक करार करते हुए उनके ऊपर अपने तर्कों से उनके तर्क का खंडन करना चाहूंगा। महोदय, मेरी विपक्षी वक्ता कहकर जाती हैं कि हम इस राष्ट्रीय धरोहर का पुनर्निर्माण करेंगे। महोदय, एक बात बताइए, क्या ये वह राष्ट्रीय धरोहर नहीं है जो बर्लिन के इतिहास पर एक कलंकित के समान है? महोदय, मेरे विपक्षी वक्ता यह कहकर जाती हैं कि यहाँ पर लोकतंत्र है, जनता का तंत्र है, ये जनता को बताएगा किस प्रकार जनता ने सरकार के खिलाफ विरोध किया। तो महोदय, जब आप खुद ही ये चीज मान चुकी हैं कि जनता पहले ही ये फरमान सुना चुकी है कि इस प्रकार की कोई भी दीवार उनके शहर में नहीं होनी चाहिए, ऐसे में अगर हम इस दीवार का पुनर्निर्माण करते हैं तो आप सोचिए, क्या ये जनता के साथ अन्याय नहीं होगा, उनके घावों को हरा नहीं करेगा? महोदय, साथ ही साथ ये जनता का सरकार के ऊपर से विश्वास उठा देगा। और महोदय, जैसे कि मेरी प्रतिपक्षी वक्ता समकालीन युग की बात कर रही हैं, तो समकालीन युग में कोरोना महामारी के दौरान में अगर हम जनता का सरकार से विश्वास उठा देंगे तो महोदय पूरे देश में, पूरे शहर में हाहाकार मच जाएगा। महोदय, वही मेरी विपक्षी वक्ता बात करती हैं कि ये टूरिज्म का एक बहुत अच्छा साधन बनेगा। महोदय, मेरी विपक्षी वक्ता भूल गई क्या, कोरोना महामारी में जो सबसे ज्यादा प्रभावित इंडस्ट्री है वो टूरिस्ट इंडस्ट्री ही है। महोदय, हम यहाँ पर जो टूरिस्ट में पैसा खर्च करेंगे महोदय, उसी पैसे को हम हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में खर्च कर सकते हैं, और वही हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का जो पैसा है महोदय, वो लोगों को टूरिस्ट की तरह भी आकर्षित करेगा, साथ ही साथ लोगों को अपना इलाज भी करवाने के लिए प्रेरित करेगा, जिससे महोदय हमारे देश, हमारे बर्लिन में और ज्यादा रोजगार बढ़ेंगे। साथ ही साथ महोदय, मेरी विपक्षी वक्ता ये कहकर जाती है कि एक सूचांक का कार्य करेगा। नहीं महोदय, एक सूचांक का कार्य नहीं करेगा, परंतु महोदय यह शीत युग को दोबारा से जन्म देगा। महोदय, फिर से अमेरिका एवं रूस एक दूसरे के सामने आकर खड़े हो जाएंगे, और महोदय इससे पता है आपको क्या होगा, इससे नुकसान होगा भारत देश विकासशील देशों का, जो आज भी विकास कर रहे हैं, परंतु इन दो महाशक्तियों के आमने सामने आ जाने से जिनका विकास थम जाएगा। महोदय, इन्हीं तर्कों के आधार पर मैं अपने विपक्षी प्रतिपक्षी वक्ता के सभी तर्कों का खंडन करता हूं एवं अपने तर्क को स्थापित करता हूं। धन्यवाद।
Slot number 43, you may ask your interjection, but please keep the question short and crisp.
ओके, तो आपने कहा कि टूरिज्म काफी अफेक्ट हुआ है कोविड से, और इससे अच्छा हमें हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पे ध्यान देना चाहिए। बट मेरा मानना है कि जब कोई इंडस्ट्री काफी कम चल रही है तो उसमें अगर इन्वेस्ट करे, लाइक उसको ऊपर लाने के लिए इन्वेस्ट करना ही सबसे अच्छा ऑप्शन है, क्योंकि हम यूं नहीं कह सकते कि टूरिज्म को फिर खत्म ही कर देते हैं। ये मेरा सवाल।
नहीं महोदय, देखिए आपको सबसे पहले विषय की गंभीरता को समझने की आवश्यकता है। यहाँ बात हो रही बर्लिन की दीवार का पुनर्निर्माण होगा। महोदय, जर्मनी अर्थात बर्लिन पहले से ही टूरिज्म में काफी सक्षम है, परंतु अगर हम बर्लिन का निर्माण करते हैं तो वह किस प्रकार हमारे देश की अर्थव्यवस्था को पीछे लेकर जाता है। महोदय, वही बर्लिन के निर्माण में जो पैसा खर्च किया जाएगा, वह बर्लिन की दीवार के निर्माण में जो पैसा खर्च किया जाएगा, वह पैसा खर्च किया जाना चाहिए हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को सुधारने में। और महोदय, हम हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को सुधारेंगे तो जो बर्लिन में आ रहे जो टूरिस्ट जो पहले से आ रहे हैं, वह हेल्थ पर भी ध्यान देंगे और अपने इलाज अगर बर्लिन में कराएंगे तो महोदय यहाँ पर जहां पहले सिर्फ एक टूरिस्ट इनकम हो रही थी, वही अब इनकम हमारी हेल्थ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर से भी होगी, साथ ही साथ टूरिज्म से भी होगी। तो महोदय, आपको इस बात की गंभीरता को समझने की आवश्यकता है। उम्मीद है मैंने आपके डाउट को क्लियर किया हो। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Yashaswini and Jay. Up next, we have slot number 18, Anchal Chaudhary and Anjali Singh Thakur. The members speaking for the motion may take the stage.
क्या मैं सुनाई वो दिखाई दे रही हूँ?
Yes, you're audible as well as visible. All the best.
Okay. तो सर्वप्रथम मैं अपना परिचय देती हूँ। सदन की गरिमा को मेरा नमस्कार। मैं आंचल चौधरी। आज का जो विषय है हमारा कि आर्थिक व्यवस्था ही जलवायु परिवर्तन का समाधान है, इसके पुरजोर पक्ष में कहना चाहूंगी। मेरे 3, 2, 1 पर आप टाइमर स्टार्ट कर दीजिएगा। जी 3, 2, 1। इस संकल्पना को समझने के लिए पहले हमें मानव प्रवृत्ति को समझने की आवश्यकता है। एक मानव जो स्वयं अगर पीड़ा में हुआ तो सर्वप्रथम स्वयं के पीड़ा का हल करने का प्रयास करेगा, उसके बाद ही वो समाज के विषय के बारे में सोचने में सक्षम होगा। उसी प्रकार जलवायु परिवर्तन, पर्यावरण आदि समस्याओं के बारे में व्यक्ति तभी सोच पाएगा जब उसकी मूल आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति होगी, और मूल आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति आर्थिक विकास से हो सकता है। आर्थिक विकास से हमारा तात्पर्य है सबको एक खुशहाल जिंदगी एवं उनके मूल आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति। हम ये जानना चाहेंगे, हम ये बताना चाहेंगे कि जलवायु परिवर्तन का जो सीधा अनुपातिक है वो अति प्रयोग से है। आज गंगा इसलिए प्रदूषित नहीं है कि उसमें कूड़ा डाला गया, अभी तो इसलिए कि उसमें अत्यधिक कूड़ा डाला गया। एक मानव जिसकी मूल आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति नहीं हो रही है, उसमें विवेक कहाँ ही होगा कि कहाँ कूड़ा फेंका जाए और कहाँ ना फेंका जाए। इसके लिए अगर उसकी आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति होगी तो उसके व्यवहार में भी जो है परिवर्तन आएगा। और हमें समझने की आवश्यकता है कि जलवायु परिवर्तन समस्याओं में सार्वधिक जिसकी आवश्यकता है वो जन भागीदारी और समाज भागीदारी, और यह दोनों तभी संभव है जब कोई व्यक्ति इस विषय के सोचने में सक्षम होगा, और इसके लिए आर्थिक व्यवस्था अपरिहार्य है। हमें इस पर भी सोचने की, ये देखने की आवश्यकता है कि इन कारकों का जो मूल आधार होता है वो प्रौद्योगिकी होता है, और पर्यावरण की जो समतल है उसको संरचना करने के लिए उसको गिरावट करने के उपकरण में प्रौद्योगिकी की काफी आवश्यकता है। और प्रौद्योगिकी प्रत्यक्ष फलन है पूंजी का, जिसका निर्माण केवल आर्थिक विकास से हो सकता है। इसके उदाहरण पर हम कह सकते हैं कि आज कार्बन कैप्चरिंग जो एक नई औद्योगिकी है वो काफी महंगी है, और इसे सिर्फ और सिर्फ वही देश ला सकते हैं जो काफी विकसित और सतत आर्थिक विकास में हो। और इसके अन्य उदाहरण पर है जैसे कि स्मोक टावर। तो अतः आर्थिक विकास तभी हो सकता है जब पर्यावरण संबंधित विषय का हल हो सकता है। हम देखते हैं कि हमारे समस्या को हमें स्थायी व सतत समाधान ढूंढने की जरूरत है, जिसके लिए हमें क्या करना होगा कि एक विकसित देश को अर्थ जहां पे समाज का प्रेरक बल के अभाव में अकरणीय स्थिति पहुंच जाएगी, अतः विकास
विकास के साथ ही पर्यावरण समस्याओं के समाधान का यथार्थ है। और इसके साथ ही जो हम समाज का जो हम विकास लेके आएंगे वो स्थायी कल्याणकारी होगा, जो कि पर्यावरण के साथ सामंजस्य बैठाई रहेगी। धन्यवाद।
Slot number 17, you may ask your interjection.
थैंक यू फॉर द रिकॉग्निशन। तो महोदया, मेरा आपसे प्रश्न ये है कि जैसे हम मनुष्य की प्रवृत्ति जानते हैं, वे स्वार्थी होते हैं और जिस प्रकार के उन्हें थोड़ा चाहिए होता है तो वो और की मांग करते हैं। तो आप जब कहते हैं कि आर्थिक में आप खुशहाली लेके आएंगे, केवल मतलब खुशहाली से मतलब कि उनकी बेसिक नेसेसिटीज पूरी हो, तो वो जलवायु पर कार्य करेंगे। लेकिन आज जब हम देखते हैं कि एक अर्थव्यवस्था में बढ़ोतरी तो हो रही है, लेकिन उसी तरह हमारी जो ग्लोबल वार्मिंग है वो भी बढ़ती जा रही है। तो किस प्रकार ये जो आर्थिक समस्या है वो आपके जो एनवायरनमेंट का कंसर्न है वो उसको सॉल्व कर रही है, जबकि आज तो हम लोग और प्रॉब्लम्स फेस कर रहे हैं।
जी महोदय, तो सर्वप्रथम तो मैं आपसे यह कहना चाहूंगी कि हमारी जो मूल आवश्यकता उसमें जो है खाना, रोटी, कपड़ा, मकान और इसके साथ साथ शिक्षा है। और अगर एक मनुष्य शिक्षित होगा तो उसमें यह ज्ञान और विवेक आ जाएगी कि उसमें उसे जो नेसेसिटी है और इसके साथ जो लग्जरी है उन दोनों में उसे अंतर प्राप्त हो जाएगा। और इसके साथ जिसके बारे में आप ग्लोबल वार्मिंग की बात करिए, जो कि हमारे ये जो विकसित के प्रभाव से हो रहे, तो मैं आपको स्पष्ट करना चाहूंगी कि मैंने अपने वक्तव्य में यह बताया था कि हम जिस विकास की बात कर रहे हैं वो सार्थक हो, वो कल्याणकारी हो एवं सतत हो, जो कि पर्यावरण के साथ सामंजस्य बैठाकर कार्य करे। अब ऐसी विकास पर बल दे रहे हैं, ना कि जो पर्यावरण का शोषण करके हल करे। इस प्रकार से मुझे लगता है कि आपके जो प्रश्न है उसका उत्तर आपको मिल चुका होगा। धन्यवाद।
The member speaking against the motion may take the stage.
सभी को शुभ अपराह्न। क्या मैं सभी को दिखाई और सुनाई दे रही हूँ?
Yes, you're audible and visible. All the best.
धन्यवाद। सभी को शुभ अपराह्न। मैं सर्वप्रथम अपना परिचय देना चाहूंगी। स्लॉट संख्या 18 से अंजलि सिंह। आज के विषय यह सदन मानता है कि आर्थिक विकास जलवायु परिवर्तन का समाधान है के विपक्ष में अपने विचार प्रस्तुत करने हेतु आपके समक्ष उपस्थित हूँ। मेरे 3 2 1 बोलने के उपरांत आप टाइमर शुरू कर दीजिएगा। 3 2 1। महोदया मेरे पक्ष की साथी आती हैं और आर्थिक विकास को अपने अनुसार परिभाषित करती हैं। वे वर्तमान परिप्रेक्ष्य से बिल्कुल ही भिन्न भाग रही हैं। उनको समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि वो क्या बोलना चाह रही हैं। उनको वर्तमान की स्थिति नजर नहीं आ रही है। वर्तमान के परिप्रेक्ष्य में मैं बताना चाहूंगी कि वर्तमान के परिप्रेक्ष्य में आर्थिक विकास को इस प्रकार से परिभाषित करना कि आज के समय में यह एक ऐसी प्रक्रिया है जिसके अंतर्गत उच्च स्तरीय लोगों के, देश के उच्च स्तरीय लोगों की आय में वृद्धि और उनके उपभोग के स्तर में उन्नति पर बल देते हुए कार्य किया जा रहा है। कहना बिल्कुल सटीक होगा। जैसा कि आप सभी जानते हैं कि जलवायु परिवर्तन के 2 प्रमुख कारक होते हैं। पहला प्राकृतिक कारक, जिसमें सौर उत्पादन और ज्वालामुखी विस्फोट आते हैं, जिसपे हमारा कोई नियंत्रण नहीं। और दूसरा कारण जान के आप आश्चर्य मानेंगे, दूसरा कारण मानवीय क्रियाकलाप है, जिसके जिम्मेदार हम खुद हैं। विडंबना इस बात की है कि आज स्थिति इतनी विषम स्थिति पहुंचती जा रही है, फिर भी मानव जाति में इस प्रकार की जागरूकता देखने को नहीं मिलती। आज की चुनावी माहौल में चुनावी एजेंडे विभिन्न विकास के कार्यों को लेके होते हैं, लेकिन पर्यावरण को लेके कोई भी एक भी चुनावी वायदे नहीं किए जाते हैं। ऐसा लगता है मानो लोग यह भूल गए हैं कि हम जो आज हमारा जो अस्तित्व है वो ऑक्सीजन पर निर्धारित है। औद्योगिकरण के नाम पर विकास की दुहाई देते हुए महोदय, हमारे वनों की अंधाधुंध कटाई हो रही है। हमारे फॉसिल फ्यूल्स का उपयोग अपनी सुविधाओं की पूर्ति के नाम पर जबकि वास्तविकता यह है कि वास्तविकता से लोग परे जा रही है। हमारी पक्ष की महोदया वास्तविकता से परे जा रही है। आज मनुष्य अपनी शान शौकत आडंबर को स्थापित करने के लिए, अपने स्वार्थ को पूरा करने के लिए हमारे प्राकृतिक संसाधनों का असीमित प्रयोग कर रहा है। औद्योगिकरण के नाम पर विषैले पदार्थ समुद्री जल में प्रवाहित किए जा रहे हैं। हमारे समुद्री जीवों को जीवन उनका नष्ट करके परिस्थितिकी तंत्र में असंतुलन पैदा किया जा रहा है। शायद ईश्वर को भी इस बात का आभास हो गया था कि मानव जाति अपने स्वार्थ के मार्ग पर रुकेगी नहीं, तभी आज हम सब कोरोना के महामारी को कहर को झेल रहे हैं। आज मेरी आवाज, मेरी संवेदनाएं सिर्फ इस सभागार तक नहीं रहनी चाहिए। मैं चाहती हूँ कि यहाँ पर उपस्थित सभी के मन में ये घिर जाए, पर्यावरण संरक्षण के प्रति एक जागरूकता फैले और सभी इसके लिए एक प्रण ले ले। जय हिंद, जय भारत।
Slot number 21, you may ask your interjection.
जी महोदय, मैं सबसे पहले आपको याद दिलाना चाहूंगी जो सस्टेनेबिलिटी का जो विषय है वह भी इकोनॉमिक विकास के अंदर ही आता है और इकोनॉमिक विकास में सस्टेनेबिलिटी के द्वारा ही हम क्या करते हैं, जो क्लाइमेट चेंज है उसकी रोकथाम करने पे कार्य करते हैं। तो इस विषय में आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
महोदया, धन्यवाद आपके प्रश्न के लिए। सर्वप्रथम मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ कि हमारे जो चुनाव में आते हैं, हमारे जो काफी वायदे बनाए जाते हैं, सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट और काफी इस तरह की बातें हमारे सामने देखने को मिलती है और यह सिर्फ और सिर्फ एक भाषा ही होती है, एक कथन ही होता है, उस पर कार्य नहीं किया जा सकता है। अगर कार्य होता तो आज जो स्थिति हम झेल रहे हैं वह स्थिति ना होती। जो ओजोन लेयर में हमारे छेद हो रहा है, आज कोरोना के कारण स्थिरता इतनी ज्यादा हो गई है कि हमारे जो वायु प्रदूषण है उसके उपरांत हमारे ओजोन का छेद भरा जा रहा है। अगर सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट पे गौर किया ही जाता तो आज इतनी विषम स्थितियां ना आती महोदय, और जो इतनी महामारी का हम सभी शिकार बने हैं, ऐसी स्थितियां ना उत्पन्न होती। महोदया, हमें गौर करना चाहिए कि जो भी कथन हम कहते हैं उस पर कार्य होना चाहिए, तब हम उसके बारे में विचार विमर्श कर सकते हैं। सिर्फ कहना ही आवश्यक नहीं होता है, बल्कि उसको क्रियान्वयन भी अति आवश्यक है। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Anjal and Anjali. Up next, we have slot number 19, Shrishti Singh Gaur and Sahil Kaushik. The member speaking for the motion may start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you're audible as well as visible. All the best.
Thank you. So I would like to extend my warm greetings to all the dignitaries and the learned panel. I'll be speaking in the favor of the motion that the House believes nepotism is a pseudo privilege. You can begin on my count of 3, 3, 2, and 1. So do you know that nepotism dates back to 17th century, but it was only after Sushant Singh Rajput's case that this issue gained the public attention. Now, over years, this form of bias is seen as a privilege, losing its original meaning owing to loyalty, stability, and continuity. Maybe that's why no matter how good Arjun Tendulkar plays, he's always tagged as a product of nepotism. And just imagine, panel, how disturbing it is for someone to literally spend his whole teenage seeking for acceptance because his talent is always overshadowed by his father's achievement. It really amuses me, panel, when people say that nepotism is a privilege. Everyone gets what is handed over to them, right? For example, Akhilesh Singh Yadav may have become president of Samajwadi Party because of his father. But let's be honest, he became the youngest CM of Uttar Pradesh only because of his efforts and his commitment. George Thomson, panel, he won Nobel Prize for his work on electrons, not by the mere fact his father was one to discover them. And Kartikeya Sarabhai won Padam Shri for his work on environment, which, by the way, panel, has no relation with his father being the father of Indian space mission. If since childhood somebody is seeing their parents making music, what's wrong with them being a musician? If the whole world sees them as their role model, what's wrong with their own children seeing them as one? Also, panel, had it been all about who's your parents or what is your ability, mind me, Abhishek Bachchan would have been the #1 Bollywood sensation, not the Shah Rukh Khan. Now, you also argue on the grounds that nepotism gives you chances, it gives you a stage, but it takes a whole lot of talent, effort, dedication, perseverance, and passion to an actor. I rest my case here, proud to propose. Thank you.
Slot number 30, you may ask your interjection.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so ma'am, you gave example of Shah Rukh Khan and Abhishek Bachchan. So what do you think, like who got it easier in Bollywood? Like Abhishek Bachchan got it easier entry on Bollywood or Shah Rukh Khan?
I will start my answer in 3, 2, 1. So my dear fellow, you said that it was easier for Abhishek Bachchan, of course, because his father had an influence there. But it doesn't matter how you get there. As Stephen Stafford says, it matters how you stayed there, how you maintain that position. And that's very evident
from the Bollywood movies, we see right now that the Shah Rukh Khan has maintained his position despite of being the so-called outsider, and Abhishek Bachchan, despite of giving him numerous chances, had failed to gain the popularity that a so-called outsider like Salman Khan, Shah Rukh Khan has gained over the time. I hope that explains your doubt.
The member speaking against the motion may start.
A very good afternoon to everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible and visible. All the best.
Thank you so much. Let me introduce. Okay, I'll start it with the count of 3. 1, 2, and 3. Let me remind my learned fellow who tried her best to justify nepotism is a pseudo privilege. But madam, reality is reality. A mere justification cannot overturn it. With the permission of the jury, with the cheers, I would like to remind my friend that it is not a pseudo privilege. Indeed, it's a privilege in true sense and meaning. Let me justify it. Sir Patrick French, a London-based historian, award-winning historian, conducted a study on 15th Lok Sabha in which he says, the result says that all the member of the parliament, MPs, below the age of 30 were from some political background, and the 70% of the elected women MPs are from political background. So madam, they may not have a political experience, but their major achievement was usually to have shared genes with the earlier leader. If I remove Gandhi from Mr. Rahul Gandhi's name, just tell me how many of you know Mr. Rahul? Jesha, the secretary of the ICC, he is there. Just tell me how many cricket matches did he play? No, none. Just because he has the privilege of being the son of Amit Shah, the Home Minister of India. Okay, leaving politics aside, we'll come to Bollywood. Pankaj Tripathi and Shah Rukh Khan were rejected so many times, whereas Ananya Pandey getting a film at 18. Isn't it a privilege? Okay, leaving politics, Bollywood aside, let me take you to my school days. When I was in school, in my school functions, the first three rows were of sofas, and that were reserved for the teachers. But one of my friend, who was the son of principal, used to sit there and enjoy the function from there. From that time, I used to think that he has some superpower. Okay, so it is always a privilege. Let me end my my statement with the statement of Siddhant Chaturvedi, where he says, our dreams are fulfilled where your struggle starts. Thank you so much.
Slot number 20, you may ask your interjection.
Thank you for the recognition, OC. So my question to you is, one cannot choose a family they are born in, and then you blame Nepo kids getting it easier. In what aspect do you justify this?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat?
Yeah, sure. My question to you is, one cannot choose a family they are born in, and then you blame Nepo kids of getting it easier. In what aspect is this justified?
Thank you so much for your question, but I am not blaming it. I'm putting the facts forward. I'm defending my statement where I'm saying this is not okay. I agree with you. So why all the MPs who are below the age of 30 are from some political background? Why can't I see a single person from any other environment? Okay, this statement, I'll also add this up. When Supreme Court of India targeted Allahabad High Court for Down syndrome. Down syndrome is like your relatives, 70 judges of this Allahabad High Court, out of that 35 judges have their relatives in the High Court. And this was a statement of Supreme Court. So ma'am, I agree with this, it's not your fault where you are born with, but when you are not deserving something, on which basis? How many matches did this Jesha played? He's there just because he is the son of this Home Minister of India, Amit Shah. Thank you so much. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Srishti and Sahil. Up next, we have Simran Dhyani and Sneh Simulti, slot number 20. The member speaking for the motion may take the stage.
I hope I'm properly audible and visible.
Yes, you're audible and visible. All the best.
All right. So yeah, I'm Simran Dhyani and my slot number is 20. And I will be speaking in favor of the motion, which is this house believes that the evictions of Palestinians from West Jerusalem was regretful. And I would start on a count of 3. Just let me put my recorder on. 3, 2, 1. If I don't steal it, someone else is gonna steal it. This was said by an Israeli settler to a family who lived in Palestine for more than decades. Sounds absurd, no? But at least they accepted that they are stealing. Panel, today I'll put forward 3 major arguments in this debate to suggest why the evictions of Palestinians is unjust and regretful. A. Escalating human rights violation. The trigger of these crises stems from the evictions of Palestinian families from Sheikh Zara, a predominantly Palestinian neighborhood in East Jerusalem. And it's not a legal matter. Rather, it's political. What settlers are doing is that they are using political tools in order to execute their long governmental strategies along with USA's support. And even UNHCR calling it a potential war crime never stopped them. Rather, made Israeli officials call it a real estate dispute. Wow. B. Lack of representatives and serious demographic threat. Israel is basically performing ethnic cleansing. Over the years, Israel has enacted various discriminatory laws with a concerted plan to evict Muslims from the city. Palestinians don't even possess any sources, unlike Israel, which has all the legal and institutions by their side. Seizing the Palestinians' land basically is an adjunct Zionist movement to create an all-Jewish state and hence minimizing the number of Palestinians Arabs. C is the biased court's proposal. Last year in early October, Israel's court published a compromise proposal which created an illusion on the ball on Palestinians' court by making them known that they are protected tenants, which was a very generous deal in what regard their homes would still be regarded as someone else's. We truly condemn this mass threat. Moreover, we believe that one country evicting the citizens of another country is not eviction, is rather invasion. With this, I'm truly proud to propose, and I'm open to interjections now.
Slot number 45, you may ask the interjection.
Okay. I agree with you partially, but if the reasons behind this eviction are continuing from the lot of time and the mistake and the lot of cruel activities were first done with Zionism side, then it was just a way back behind this. What's your views on that?
Could you please rephrase your question? I didn't understand your question. Could you please repeat it once or rephrase it?
Okay. I'm saying that if you will read the book, a policy, then you might be knowing that the reasons behind this eviction, the cruel activities were done with the Zionism side, the people from Jews, then it was just their reaction to those times.
Actually,
I hope you get it.
Yeah, I think you never understood this fact that I'm standing for the motion and I'm standing for the Palestinians, not for the Israelis. So your question is quite ironical in the sense you are targeting that Jews started this movement, Jews started all the terror activities. So I just want to address this fact that I'm standing for the Palestinian, not for the Israelis. So your question is ironical and it's not aptly correct.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that first Palestinians were done some wrong things with the Jews, then it was
Okay, all right. So okay, I would start on a count of 3, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so all right, firstly I need to we need to address this fact that this is a totally a different debate in itself, and it is not, today's debate is not inclined towards this fact that who did what. It's about evictions, and if I have to answer this question, that then every single movement has 2 factions. One is the moderates and second is the extremists. And there are extremist groups like Hamas in Palestinian side too, whose only motive is to establish a whole Islamic state. They do not even care about Palestinians. They just want a whole Islamic state in all. And there are other organizations like PLO, which is established in 1964, that is Palestine Liberation Organization. it aims towards providing Palestinians real justice, and it is the only organization which works, which uses diplomatic and legal methods to provide it. So I think I made myself quite clear with that, and thank you for the question.
The member speaking against the motion may start now.
Sure. Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you're audible as well as visible. All the best.
Thank you. Greetings, judges. Greetings, everyone. I am Sneha Samalti speaking against the motion. This House believes that the eviction of Palestinian families in East Jerusalem was regretful. You can start the timer on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. I oppose the motion on the basis of 3 fundamental arguments. Primarily, during Arab-Israel war, Jordan had annexed East Jerusalem, ensuing which expropriation of land from Jews and its transfer to Palestinian Arabs was done. But this was illegitimate and was therefore disregarded by Israel government after retraction of Jordan from East Jerusalem. Proposition speaker have claimed that this was rather done to establish Jewish dominance, but if it would have been the case, then it would have been happened in other areas of West Bank as well. Secondarily, people often affiliate eviction with demolition, with bloodshed, violence, conflicts, and whatnot. I would like to apprise them that only punitive demolition was done, and that too to penalize those who were terrorists or were harboring terrorists. And this is fact that conflicts were there before eviction, after eviction, and will sustain until and unless people from both the sides endeavor to resolve them mutually. Most importantly, Israel's Supreme Court had even propounded a middle path to thwart eviction, according to which these settlers would not be evicted and would be safeguarded if they assent to pay land to the real landholders, to the legitimate ones. But this proposition was indignantly disapproved by them, and no better alternative was put forth thereafter. And this is what has constrained, what constrained Israel government to evict them. With these points, I think I've been able to convince you all that motion stands in no way. I conclude my speech here. Thank you for lending me your ears.
Slot number 10, you may ask your interjection.
Thank you so much, Chair, for the recognition. My question to the speaker is that, ma'am, Gurudwara Kartarpur Sahib is quite religious and sacred to the Sikhs, and it is falling approximately 5 kilometers from the LOC to the Pakistani side. But this hasn't stopped Indians to visit that religious place. Right, rather than the two sides, Pakistan and India, have entered into mutual and numerous MOUs for this to happen successfully and peacefully. Don't you think some sort of an agreement can be made between Palestinians and Israel, even in the case of Jerusalem? Is eviction of life more important than settlement?
Madam, first of all, this eviction is not done on political or religious basis. It is total, it's sheer legitimate thing. And first thing, you talked about religion and all of that. If the Sheikh-Jarrah conflict would have ended much before if Hamas would not have meddled in and would not have launched all those rockets and all of that. And many propositions have been made from Israel's side to resolve the issue, but Palestinians need to to address all of that and need to accept any of these or to come up with a better alternative. Thank you. Proud to oppose.
Thank you, Simran and Sneh. Next, we have slot number 21, Lakshita Pandey and Yashika Yadav. The member speaking for the motion may start.
क्या मैं साफ तौर पर दिखाई दे रही हूँ?
Yes, you're audible as well as visible. All the best.
ओके मेरे 3 गिनने पे आप शुरू कीजिएगा। सबको मेरा प्रणाम। मैं लक्षिता पांडे, स्लॉट नंबर 21 दिए गए विषय सदन मानता है कि परिवर्तन प्रगति नहीं है के पक्ष में अपने विचार प्रस्तुत करना चाहूंगी। 1, 2, 3। महोदया, सबसे पहले हमारे लिए समझने की यह जरूरत है कि परिवर्तन यानी क्या। परिवर्तन यानी एक व्यवस्था के स्थान पर दूसरी व्यवस्था का आना, और प्रगति यानी कि जो भी नई व्यवस्था आ रही है वो सही हो, सबका समाज का सबका उससे सही कार्य हो, वह कहलाता है प्रगति। महोदय, हमारे समाज में ऐसे कई प्रकार के परिवर्तन आए हैं जिसे हम साफ तौर पर प्रगति नहीं कह सकते, जैसे कि औद्योगिक क्रांति। औद्योगिक क्रांति एक बहुत ही बड़ा परिवर्तन था, परंतु इन्हें हम कैसे भी प्रगति नहीं कह सकते। क्यों? इसके परिणामों की वजह से। पूंजीवाद जो इससे उतरा हुआ एक परिणाम है। पूंजीवाद में लोगों ने, जिनके पास पैसा था, उन्होंने गरीबों का उन्होंने शोषण किया, उनके साथ गलत व्यवहार किया, अपना कार्य निकलवाया, उनका कुछ भला नहीं हुआ। दूसरा, औद्योगिकरण से निकलने वाला जो समस्या है वो है जलवायु परिवर्तन। जलवायु परिवर्तन की समस्या जो हम आज देख रहे हैं अपने आसपास, वे समस्या किसी भी प्रकार से प्रगति का साक्षात्कार नहीं करते हैं। साम्राज्यवाद भी औद्योगिकरण से निकली हुई एक गहरी समस्या है। साम्राज्यवाद में क्या हुआ? ब्रिटेन जैसे विकसित देशों ने अविकसित देशों का उन्होंने क्या किया? उनके साधनों का उन्होंने इस्तेमाल किया और बाकी देशों को खोखला करके रख दिया। महोदय, मेरी प्रतिपक्षी वक्ता कहेंगी कि प्रौद्योगिकी से क्या होता है? प्रौद्योगिकी से सब कुछ अच्छा होता है, प्रौद्योगिकी भी एक अच्छा बदलाव है। नहीं, बिल्कुल भी नहीं। प्रौद्योगिकी के कारण लोगों का रोजगार गया है। प्रौद्योगिकी एक ऐसा परिवर्तन है जिसने लोगों को बेरोजगार करके रख दिया है। वे बात करेंगे कि वैश्वीकरण की, वैश्वीकरण जिसमें कि लोगों की संस्कृति का लेन देन हुआ। महोदय, संस्कृति का लेन देन तो तब साक्षात्कार होता है, वो तब प्रगति कहलाता है जब उससे कुछ अच्छा होता है। लोग अपनी संस्कृति को छोड़कर दूसरों की संस्कृति को अपनाते हैं। यह परिवर्तन तो प्रगति नहीं कहला सकता। क्यों? क्योंकि इसमें समाज का समाज का एकल रूप में विकास हो रहा है। किसी एक समस्या, एक जो प्रवृत्ति है उसका बढ़ावा हो रहा है। पूरे समाज में अच्छी चीजें नहीं हो रही है। महोदय, समाज में व्यक्तिवाद जैसी समस्या, व्यक्तिवाद में क्या होता है? व्यक्ति को प्रधानता दी जाती है। व्यक्ति जो चाहता है, वो जो चाहता है उसको प्रधानता दी जाती है समाज के ऊपर, और प्रगति समाज पर निर्भर करती है। प्रगति में क्या होता है? समाज का विकास होता है। केवल एक व्यक्ति के विकास को हम पूरे समाज का विकास प्रगति नहीं कह सकते। इन्हीं के साथ मैं अपने शब्दों को विराम देना चाहूंगी। आप सबका धन्यवाद।
Seeing as there are no interjections in the chat box, you'll get full marks for your interjection. Next, I'd like to call on stage the member speaking against the motion.
जी, मैं साफ तौर पे दिखाई और सुनाई दे रही हूँ?
Yes, all the best.
ठीक है। तो मेरे दो आप शुरू कर दीजिए टाइमर। महोदय, परिवर्तन क्या होता है? जब किसी व्यवस्था की जगह कोई नई और बेहतर व्यवस्था लेने लगती है, उसे परिवर्तन कहते हैं। और जब ये परिवर्तन एक अध्ययनपूर्ण तरीके से किया जाए, सही नीति और नियत के साथ किया जाए, सकारात्मक दृष्टिकोण के साथ किया जाए, तो ये परिवर्तन कहीं ना कहीं किसी ना किसी आयाम में प्रगति लाते हैं। महोदय, बात की जाए औद्योगिकरण की, तो ये एक बहुत बड़ा बदलाव था जो ब्रिटेन में 18वीं शताब्दी में आया, जहां पर लोग उस समय सिर्फ और सिर्फ कृषि पर मूल रूप से आधारित रहते थे। तो कृषि उत्पादनों का सही से उपयोग नहीं हो पाता था और सभी की जरूरतें पूरी नहीं हो पाती थी। जब औद्योगिकरण आया तो उससे उत्पादन बहुत बड़ी क्षमता से और बहुत बड़े स्तर पर किए जाने लगा, जिससे सभी लोगों की जो जरूरतें हैं वो पूरी होने लगी। और इससे साथ ही साथ लोगों के जीने की, रहन सहन की स्थिति में, खान पान की स्थिति में, स्वास्थ्य में, शिक्षा में, इन सभी स्थितियों में प्रगति आनी चालू हुई। जब औद्योगिकरण शुरू हुआ तो उसी का नतीजा था कि उस समय की औद्योगिक क्रांति से आज वर्तमान समय में वैश्वीकरण हो सका है, जहां पर एक जगह की वस्तुएं और सेवाएं दूसरे क्षेत्रों में, विश्व के दूसरे क्षेत्रों तक पहुंच रही हैं। जब लोगों की पहुंच बढ़नी चालू हुई, तब हमें जरूरत पड़ी तकनीकी विकास की, तकनीकी बदलाव की। जब तकनीक में बदलाव किया जाने लगा तो इन सभी क्षेत्रों में, स्वास्थ्य में, शिक्षा में वापस से प्रगति होनी शुरू हुई। और महोदय, मेरे प्रतिपक्षी ने इसका दावा किया कि जो वैश्वीकरण था उससे लोगों, सिर्फ अर्थव्यवस्था ही नहीं परंतु लोगों को नुकसान हुआ। क्यों? क्योंकि उनकी संस्कृति, क्योंकि लोग दूसरों की संस्कृति अपनाने लगे। परंतु महोदय, जब किसी चीज जो अच्छी है उसको अपनाना सही है, जो संस्कृति दूसरे की है वो अपनाना सही है, वो गलत नहीं है। इससे फायदा यह हुआ कि एक जहां किसी एक संस्कृति का प्रचार हो रहा था, वहीं दूसरी संस्कृति मजबूत हुई और प्रगति प्राप्त की। इसीलिए महोदय, अंत में मैं यही कहूंगी कि जो परिवर्तन है वो यदि सही रूप से किया जाए, सही दृष्टिकोण के साथ किया जाए, तो वह बदलाव लाता है और उससे प्रगति होती है किसी ना किसी मानक में या आयाम में।
Slot number 45, you may ask your interjection.
श्रीमती यशिका जी, मैं आपसे ये पूछना चाहूंगा, एक बार के लिए जनसांख्यिकी परिवर्तन के बारे में सोचें तो आजादी के समय विभाजन हुआ था। आप इससे एक प्रगति के रूप में कैसे इंगित करेंगे जब हमने देश के साथ विभिन्न मुद्दों का सामना किया, चाहे वो युद्ध हो, चाहे वो आतंक?
देखिए महोदय, आप धन्यवाद आपके सवाल के लिए।
मैंने अपने वक्तव्य की शुरुआत में ही कहा, जब कोई परिवर्तन किसी के लिए सकारात्मकता लाए, किसी के लिए फायदा लाए और वह सही नीयत के साथ किया गया हो, सही नीति और अध्ययनपूर्ण तरीके से किया गया हो, तो वो फायदा देता है। महोदय, आपने उदाहरण दिया बंटवारे का, भारत के बंटवारे का, जिसे बांटकर पाकिस्तान और भारत कर दिया गया। बांटा किसने महोदय? अंग्रेजों ने। वो अंग्रेज जिन्हें भारत के गांवों के बारे में, देहातों के बारे में पता ही नहीं था, कहां से वो लकीर खींच रहे हैं। किसी ऊंचे पद कहीं का बंटवारा करना सही नहीं है, ये अध्ययनपूर्ण तरीके से बताया गया। तो उम्मीद ही कैसे कर सकते हैं कि इस बदलाव से प्रगति होगी। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Lakshmi Yashika. Up next, we have slot number 22, Anyagra and Aarti Sharma. The member speaking for the motion may start. Is slot number 22 in the meeting? So we'll wait for them till 1:52. If they're not here, then we'll move on to slot number 23. Seeing as it is 1:52 and they still have not joined, their slots have been shifted till the end. Now I'd like to call slot number 23, Shubham Sanjeev Das and D. Vaishnavi Sudha. The member speaking for the motion may take the stage. We'll be waiting for these slots till 1:55. And if they still haven't joined, their slots will be shifted till the end.
Hi, extremely sorry for keeping you guys waiting. I was just facing some problems. Am I clearly audible and visible?
Yes, you're audible as well as visible.
Oh, 1 second. Let me just set up. Oh, I can't see myself. Anyways, if I'm invisible to the judges, I'll just give a countdown. I will be starting in 3, 2, 1. Woodrow Wilson has rightly said that democracy is not so much a form of governance as it is a set of principles. To prove that democracies are a Western concept, I'll prove 3 arguments. 1, the origin of democratic principles in the philosophy was Western. Secondly, the successful implementation and developments of democracy were Western. And thirdly, the counterfactual as to why Eastern states couldn't conceptualize democracy. During the 18th century's Age of Enlightenment, the first democracy is credited to the ancient Greeks. This was largely based on the idea of giving people some voice and that the government can be replaced through peaceful transfer rather than violent uprisings and revolutions. The Athenian direct democracy has evolved into the widely prevalent representative democracy today. France and the United States are rightly coined as the birthplaces of modern democracy. The French Revolution, where the clergy was overthrown, the feudal system and the monarchy abolished, and the right to vote and political agency was given to the people, was literally the founding stone of the democracy we know today. Why is democracy not an Eastern concept despite being universal? When Aga Khan Empire exploited India, we never looked for democracy, but rather bagged Shivaji Maharaj in hope of a better replacement to a benevolent autocracy. The democracy in Japan and China have been largely run by the LDP and the CCP respectively since its inception. Most of the Gulf nations still have constitutional monarchies. Thus, the common denominator is that historically, these states had vaguely democratic ideals, but never true democracy in the conventional sense. We also need to note that based on democratic principles, all the movements have originated in the West. That is to say, for example, the suffragette movement, the feminist movement, the LGBTQIA+ rights movement, the Black Lives Matter movement are all credited to the West, making them the modern-day torchbearers of democratic evolution. To conclude, democracy is not a Western plot. It's a universal value. I'm not here to argue that democracy doesn't exist in the East. That's preposterous. I'm simply prove to you that it's largely adopted from the West and that the West is factually, epistemologically, practically the conceptualizer of democracy. Extremely proud to propose.
There are no interjections in the chat box, so you will get full marks for your interjection. The member speaking against the motion may start now.
I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yes, you're audible and visible. All the best.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Vaishnavi Sudha, speaking against the motion. I disagree with the given motion, and here's why. Please start with my timer in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen and everybody, democracy is not a Western plot, right? Let's demystify the basic understanding that democracy was imposed by the West onto the rest. A, that is wrong. B, that is a very shallow understanding of history, right? Voting is just a very small part in the larger ethos of democracy, right? You cannot isolate given examples of Athens or Spartacus or certain American historiographies and compare it and deem it as the only source. That's a pretty arbitrary approach to go about it, right? Because why? You're completely negating the injuries sustained by the people in asserting their right and speaking out their will. Right? Everybody was heard, from the soldier to the chief to the priest. So that is a purest form of democracy. You're completely forgetting the idea of Shanti Parva, of Vidhan Sabha, of Vidhan Samiti, of councils, where distinguished members came together to assert their work. That was written in the Ashtadhyaya of Panini, or the Battle of Magadha and Vaishali, the very first republic in this world, where two systems of governances were established, right? Rajatantra and Ganatantra. You're completely negating and forgetting the Islamic history, where Arab and Iranian mathematicians came together to question the theocratic traditions, to assert logical reasoning, tolerance, and public discussion, right? Or Mughal ruler Akbar, when he was talking about minority rights, codifying those laws, asserting religious freedom, and a discussion between Hindus, Muslims, Zoroastrians, and even Judaites, and even atheists for that matter. Right, to see dissidents of Iran as who wanted democratic rights, as not advocates of democracy, but as mere dissidents or ambassadors of Western values is quite disrespectful, right? Your illusion to cultural density should not extract a heavy price on continued impoverishment. Just because the word democracy has been taken from the Westernized concept, Democratus or Greek, does not mean that that is completely Western. The word may be Western, the concept is universal. Right, Achaemenid Persian Empire was actually divided into provinces and administered by the satrapa. That system was taken over by the Romans and further integrated by the Americans while framing the legal framework, right? So your lack of understanding of the entire ancient and medieval history of the world should not limit to the ambiguity present in the modern day or the contemporary history in general. Thank you, and I rest my case here, and I'm open for interjections.
Slot number 43, you may ask your interjection.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So first of all, I want to mention that, you know, yes, okay, in the Mauryan Empire, there was voting and everything. But who used to vote were the ministers who were accountable to no one in the whole state. So my basic question is, you know, although there were basic rules set up by the, you know, Indians or the, you know, the people in the East, but you know, the main practical enactment of all the rules and with you know, having equality of every person was done by the Western, and that was learned by every other person in the each corner of the world, and that it was then when the democracy was truly implemented in all over the world. So what are your views on this?
You gave a question or your opinion? I'm quite confused.
It was an opinion, and this was my question as well, because I want your views on what just I said.
All right, sir. Thank you. So firstly, that's a very bleak understanding, because even in Athens, right, the citizenship was very much limited to people who were landowners or who had olives and, you know, Mediterranean flourishment in their area. They had to have a certain amount of land to be deemed as citizens, right? Only free men were citizens. Slaves were not citizens. Women were not citizens. Poor people were not citizens, right? So your understanding of representation of people is also quite flawed. Even in the Vedic period of India, way before the monarchical period, women were very much present in Vidhan Samitis and Sabhas, right? Much later, in the 5th and the 6th century, that we witnessed monarchical and oligarchical form of governance and kings, right? So even in the Western philosophy, the concept of democracy was not totally representative. This modern democracy talking about is a much developed one after centuries of research and logic and reasoning. I am telling you about the nascent and the very abrupt formation of democracy. That was not limited to the West. If you compare the timelines of 320 BCE in India, ancient India, and 520, 530 BC in Athens and other parts of the region. So I think that is a very flawed representation. I think you cannot compare two different places and establish a correlation between them. I hope I answered the question pretty well.
Thank you, Shubham and Vaishnavi. Seeing as we have reached slot number 23, we'll be taking a short break of about 30 minutes. I request all the participants to join back by 2:34 p.m. Thank you.